Disclaimer: I will be playing up all emotions, including anger, for the sake of comedy. The opinions expressed in this video, while I stand by them, will be exaggerated. I do not get this tilted over Minecraft game shows. For the most part. Hello, ya beautiful bastards! Welcome to the Game Pain ranking video. The 12th of June 2019, Derek dared me to make a video ranking every season of the Game Pain, and I agreed. I then promptly put it off for nearly 5 years. While the original plan was to rank the first 6 seasons, a mix of laziness and the knowledge that Game Pain was coming to an end had me putting it off. I feel like putting it off was the right decision, as having a ranking without the last 2 seasons would feel very incomplete and awkward. The 5 years part, though, that was fully laziness. Well, it should go without saying, if you haven't seen the original series by Derek, I urge you to give it a watch before coming here. As a game show, its elimination order and the surprise of what challenges are coming up is its main appeal, and it really should not be spoiled in a fucking ranking video. Now, the plan is for this video to be released on the same day as the Game Pain Season 7 finale.
You serious?
Okay, yeah, well that was the original plan, but I am really good at breaking promises. Hopefully, at the very least, this can be uploaded on the anniversary of some random day important Game of Pain history, and if it isn't, comment below to tell me how stupid I am. Actually, now that I think about it, yell at me anyway. Thumbs are good for the YouTube algorithm. Now, if you've chosen to ignore my warning and proceed with the ranking video anyway, despite not knowing what Game of Pain is, it's rather quite simple. A group of contestants play in a challenge, and whoever gets last gets eliminated and is not allowed to play in future challenges, and as such can no longer win the season. In addition, whoever gets second to last gets a disadvantage in the next challenge as a punishment for being terrible, and on the flip side, the winner will get an advantage in the next challenge so they can continue their streak. The last thing this show has are hidden advantages, the main one being the Pain Idol, named after the show itself. If the holder of a Pain Idol gets last in a challenge, they can use it to force themselves and the second to last player into a trivia challenge, the winner of which being safe with a disadvantage and the loser being eliminated. Wait! Alright, the final thing I want to cover is the criteria I will be using is the potential of each challenge, not the events of it. For example, this shot from Crepe is fucking legendary, but Derek had no way of knowing what happened. It's not fair to put any challenge up on a pedestal due to pure happenstance that nearly any other challenge could have had a similar moment of fucking Giga Chad. As for the ranking... Wait! Alright, I should mention something. I fucking hate the Pain Idol. I get it, Derek wants something to differentiate his show from Strikeout, but it's a randomly hidden idol. Absolute horseshit. I appreciate the fact that's not an automatic go fuck yourself to second to last place, but still a little whack that you can be punched and booze because someone worse than you got lucky and found a clock. What? We begin! Starting off, the cast is pretty great, outside of JoJo being a mute and Slinger being... Slinger. Oro, Bronco, and Andy are pretty iconic, Razu is the Game of Pain meme, and Kieran was one of the first people I met on Discord, so seeing him here is a really fun time capsule for me. Not to mention Hopes and Dreams for the intro song, top tier choice. Even if it doesn't really correspond to the season at all, it's still a banger. Even though the intro was crusty well. Let's be honest though, the main appeal of game shows is the challenges within them. And if I'm gonna be honest, the first episode isn't bad. Parkour Roulette is a fun theme by having mini parkours for people to play in, as it allows for fun gimmicks with each room. Even if the challenge is ripped from Strikeout, it's a fun idea. Especially with the fact that, as being safe means your parkour is selected, you are encouraged to pick your least favorite parkour and thus be exempt from playing it. However, even as we start, we begin to have issues. Many of the rooms are rather boring, with the only 3 that truly offer anything different are the Slapstick Room, Jump Boost, and Fishing Rod. The jump boost section is tragically short-lived and the slapstick room is damaged parkour. No one likes damaged parkour. The only section I'd call good would be fishing rods. Everything else in the challenge is perfectly average, but I'd say it meets the expectations of having a strong opener to the season. So let's see what this season's fall is a quite good opener with.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Fortunately, this challenge becomes much worse when considering the rest of the season that comes after. Episodes 4 and 5 were both parkour challenges that were also taken from Strikeout, including Trap Run, one of the worst challenges in Strikeout history. There's nothing fun about watching parkour, but the gimmick is that people can hit each other. The traps become damn near useless as just watching people smack each other until one lucky bastard breaks out of the pack. Not to mention, the episode 4 was also parkour, which Derek admits was just the Strikeout Season 3 finale. I suppose I should probably talk about that episode now. It is the only episode in Game Pain history that there is simply no footage of. Like I said in the intro, it is wildly unfair to bring up things that the host had no control over as reasons to knock the season. It wouldn't be fair to Derek, who clearly put effort into every season, including this one, to bash him because of a random corruption issue. Poor casting decisions, bad editing, and bad challenges are all on Derek, so they're open to criticism. Which, speaking of, despite my leniency with the fact that this episode was corrupted, this is another goddamn parkour challenge stolen from Strikeout. 3 of the 7 challenges this season are parkour games ripped from another show. It's not all just that the plagiarism from one place, it's the fact that it's all parkour. Using the same challenge genre even twice is questionable. Using it 3 times just leads to it becoming boring and stale, and offers no actual distinction between the episodes. Hey, look at that, we're out of the territory of actual garbage. Now it's time for mediocrity. Tell me, do you actually remember anything of substance from the Final 4? Or is it just Bronco's lever fail? I barely remember the challenge when I went to rewatch it for this ranking, and the first goddamn thing I see is parkour. At the very least, it only makes up half the challenge, although with this, it also makes up half the fucking season. Your game show is literally 50% parkour, Derek. I hope you're proud of yourself. And the other half is, just one second. Oh! It's a fucking maze! Lovely. There's nothing interesting about the maze. It's literally just the person on top figuring out what the path through the maze is and then yelling at the person on the bottom to move their ass. At the very least, it's different. This is the 3rd best challenge of the season, and we are still dealing with plagiarism. The initial ring is a fun enough twist, but it suffers an issue that most iterations of Fly to the Place have when we're talking about the campaign. A lack of scale. It really lacks the grandiose natures that elytras can and should lend to a challenge. The challenge is fine, but the issue is that elytra is one of the cookie-cutter Minecraft mechanics that everyone wants to base a challenge around because they believe that the elytra's different physics and movements are enough to be interesting. But because they're so widespread, you need to do something to actually make that challenge interesting. As it stands, this version of Fly to the Place can't stand out among the rest of them. And that's the biggest sin you can commit when stealing a challenge. You want your challenge to stand out from the original. Otherwise, you are just copying someone else note for note. Second to last to talk about is the Wool Arena. On the tin, it's simple, but I have a question. When was the last time you used TNT strategically? While elytras are common enough that they alone are not interesting, TNT is much more rare as an actual game mechanic. While we've all destroyed a village or two with it, can you tell me how far a player has to be damaged by an explosion? Or exactly how much wool would be destroyed before you actually see the TNT explode? It's the unknown that gives this challenge an edge before we even discuss the rules. Blow up the arena, and don't die by the TNT or the spleef. At the start, it's quite calm, but the peasants have more than enough room in the quite interesting arena. It allows them an opportunity to learn the mechanics of TNT, get a general feel for how far the TNT destroys or how far the knockback reaches. As they learn, the arena gets whittled down and they have to be careful. One wrong move and you could blow yourself up or destroy the blocks under you, or simply even accidentally take knockback and fall into a pre-existing pit. It's unfortunate that this is the season that this challenge caps off, because it had the potential to be a very satisfying end to a very good season. As it stands, it doesn't add to the mountain disappointment called Season 4, but it can't redeem it either. Pressure Plate Run, which should have been called Pressure Plate Panic, but whatever, is almost disappointing because this challenge is so fucking good, and yet it's used for Season 4. It tricks you into thinking the season ahead will actually be quality, especially because in a vacuum, the first parkour challenge isn't bad. It's such a simple premise, but that's almost the beauty of it. Just a 1v1 tournament based on claiming more land than your opponent. The way I describe it is anticlimactic, but it's either a super tense close match as they're desperately trying to claim each block they can over the other, or it's hilariously one-sided. JoJo vs. Kieran is one of the funniest things I have seen in the game show community ever. There's almost a puzzle aspect to it, as you have to figure out the best pressure place to hit to both reclaim territory from your opponent's side, while also mixing in gaining new ground that you both share. And praising a challenge for having real-time puzzle aspects is something you'll begin real used to this ranking. If nothing else, I'm glad to say the Game Pain Season 4 has at least one What the fuck is that, Derek? Can I not have a single fucking positive thing to say about this season? How do you even fuck that up? For those who didn't see, he somehow managed to teleport everyone into the arena before counting up the score. Worse yet, he didn't even have the cojones to say he fucked it up, pause the show, and take a look at the recording. Nah, he just went with a random pick, which, oh, guess what? Was wrong. You had actual visual evidence in Three's computer of who won, and you didn't fucking use it. I'm pretty sure the cast wouldn't have mind waiting 5 minutes so your game show could keep its integrity. Final thoughts on the season? It's absolute garbage. I genuinely wonder what Derek was thinking when making the challenges for this, especially considering the genuine quality of the last 2 seasons. Before making this ranking, I thought Season 1's campiness feeling was what made me enjoy it more than Season 4, but no. Season 4 is actually worse than the show's first outing. I want to say at least we have nowhere to go but up, but I refuse to give Season 4 any sort of credit, even in the most backhanded of ways.
Disappointment in the game of life!
So I'll bring this up at the start of the segment this time, considering I don't have a joke to make about how garbage the season is. This season has some lag issues for the first 2 episodes of the season, and like last season, I've elected to not consider it in the ranking. Even though I am rating the viewing quality of each season, it's rather unfair to Derek to consider factors outside of his control. Although let's face it, even if we had considered these factors, the ranking wouldn't change. If we consider the lag, we'd have to consider the entire ass missing episode from Season 4. Both these factors would taint the ranking of these seasons even further than they already are. Thanks for sucking, Season 4. Makes my job a hell of a lot easier. Fun fact, the start of the script is so old that the music you're listening to now came out after I started. This is important for 2 reasons. 1, I got to make that stupid-ass joke, and 2, at the time of writing the script, I desperately need to rewatch the seasons so I can say things more clear than, I think this episode sucked ass, or damn, I think I remember that being a gamer moment. And after rewatching the season, I really have one main thing to say. Bree, turn your Discord to Do Not Disturb! Fucking hell! Like, nah, chop your recording quality, damn, whatever, that's not your fault, but Discord status is a conscious decision, motherfucker! While Season 4 was either garbage or garbage that copied Strikeout, this season is a decent bit better, either being garbage that copied Strikeout, or, well, not garbage, I guess? Unprecedented, isn't it? I feel like it's always best to end off with a positive, something that wasn't possible with last place, so let's start with the negatives for Season 1. The garbage that copied Strikeout first. It sucks. If you couldn't guess that from my previous language, go back to kindergarten and develop some critical thinking skills. First of all, Fly to the Place completely lacks the grandiose scale that makes Strikeout Fly to the Place so damn memorable. Same issue as Season 4. Korean Derek Myers is the dumbest fucking name for a challenge I've ever heard, and also this Bomberman-ass looking arena is just not interesting. Hide and Seek is literally more like Striker Myers than the challenge named after Striker Myers, and UHC Free-For-All is a PvP free-for-all. And considering damage is permanent, it just encourages camping and cleanup. Literally the issue with every PvP game lumped together, then multiplied. Goblet of Fire is stolen from Strikeout Season 11. But without the Thread the Needle lava jump, you steal from Strikeout, but instead of adding to the experience, you remove mechanics? Not to mention, what the fuck is up with that border? Just add a zoom effect. Even I know how to do that. Aren't you the editor, Derek? Add on to all of that, the stupid-ass decision at the command block to replace the offhand with the totem, leading to bows getting deleted. You have to play around contestant stupidity and challenge-making, Derek. So, after butchering a really good challenge from Strikeout, we also get to talk about the final challenge this season. Right off the bat, we have a question with multiple answers, but you have to Jedi mindfuck Derek to know which one he has arbitrarily decided is the correct one. The first question was to bring Derek someone whose in-game name started with an I. Someone brought up Striker's head, whose IGN is I am Striker, which is a valid answer according to the question Derek asked, but because it was not specifically Derek's answer, it was invalid. Outside of that, it's just trivia. Skip! At the very least, through all the hot garbage, Derek didn't accidentally rig someone to loot. God fucking damn it! Because this season's segment has been so short, I'll address a potential concern that someone might have here. Earlier I stated, the final thing I want to cover is the criteria I will be using is the potential of each challenge, not the events of it. The question becomes, why do I give Derek shit for his actions during the show? When judging a work of art, you are judging the artist. The artist behind the Game of Pain is Derek. It is his job to make sure that the Game of Pain goes well, and while part of that is make sure the base components are good, it is also up to him to make sure that the show runs smoothly during play. And actions such as not waiting for slime or not checking the footage after ruining the playing field halts that smoothness. Part of being a good host is knowing how to react when a situation goes awry. And so when Derek fails at doing that, it is just as reasonable to criticize him for it as when he fails at challenge making. The host must be put at a higher standard of quality than the contestants. Now, as much as I love garbage, there are a few challenges this season I would only consider regular trash. Battle of the Blocks, baby, seems to be one of Derek's favorites throughout the entire Game Pain franchise, so it has to be good, right? Right? Actually, yeah, honestly. It's a challenge based on collecting materials in a large arena that is created with a set command world edit. With those materials, you have to craft armor and weapons for a PvP fight. Hell, Derek liked this challenge so much he brought it back for multiple later seasons. That being said, I do have to say this is the worst iteration. First of all, without a time limit, this minigame is just wait for everyone to get full diamond gear and then two unlucky bastards meet. Why do I say unlucky? Because the third person gets a free spot into the final two as the first to die is eliminated. Hate to break this to you, Dare Bear, that's a bad game design. In general, I'm not a huge fan of how luck-dependent this game can be, finding hidden chests or chamber rooms, but I guess with the Pain Idol, this game should never shied away from luck, did they? All that leaves are the first and last episode.
I mean, it's alright, like...
Outside of the pre-traumatic stress disorder that Season 4 gave me, they're both parkour games. I have to give Escape the Block some credit. Jump Boost and Slime Blocks are just an underrated combo. The bows are a neat addition, but in the end, it's parkour.
I mean, it's alright.
As for Parkour Adventure,
I mean,
it's parkour featuring archery. What is there to explicitly say? Overall, my biggest problem with this season is how little there is to say. As it was his first recorded season, Derek hadn't experimented very much, which leads up to challenges with nothing interesting going on at best and plagiarism at worst. At the very least, the poor, stolen, and both poor and stolen challenges had variety, and Derek's fuck-up didn't affect an otherwise really good challenge. But, hey, I don't think anyone actually expected Season 1 to be a frontrunner for best season. I feel really bad for Aura.
Do what you want, cause a pirate is free. You are a pirate.
You know, it makes sense we would run into treasure on this sea of mediocrity. While this season is personally incredibly important to me, being the first recorded game show I played in, well, at least the first one to be released, I have to make sure my narcissism bias doesn't inflate the season artificially. Is 6th place low enough down? The cast here is pretty solid. Some Game Pain staples like Razoo, Globalist, Zombie, and CGQ, some meme team members like Exploding in Air, and some wildcards like Zaya and yours truly. Also, Zebra was there. The first issue comes from the theming of the season. Not every season has a theme attached to it, but this one is supposed to be treasure themed. And yet I defy you to find one challenge that is actually themed around treasure this season. Except for the one challenge actually called Stolen Treasure. I'll give you that one, Derek. I suppose one could argue that the theme was that the winner got the treasure, but then why bother drawing so much damn attention to it? At the very least, the challenges are pretty solid this time around. The first challenge is Battle of the Blocks version 2, which is definitely an upgrade to the Season 1 version. Instead of first to die is eliminated, it's the first two to die go into a 1v1 challenge. Battle of the Blocks this season represents missed potential to me. The first issue is how little most of the challenge matters. After the first 2 deaths, you just wait for the fodder to die and play 7th to 1st. With how massive the arena is, and the entire middle part of this challenge is just forcing 2 players to wait for an ultimately pointless, drawn-out PvP game. Frankly, that's not even the only issue I have here. With how abundant diamonds are, the mining aspect doesn't matter as everyone inevitably ends up with full diamond gear. The only variation in kit comes from random sections Derek artificially placed throughout the map, which is just pure luck at that point. While we're at it, I might as well mention the Pain Idol. Derek hosted a game before the recording date where the winner would get an advantage in the first challenge of the Game Pain Season 6. CGQ won, and his advantage? He was told to select cyan as a color and given instructions to the Pain Idol. What? Pain Idol in general, but to just decide that someone should get a fucking immunity idol because of a game hosted before the season, even if you want to argue that it's like how advantages work in the show itself, 1. Not all cast members could have shown up, so the chance to earn this advantage is not given to everyone. 2. No advantage is being given another chance if you get last, also screwing over whoever gets second to last. And 3, it removes the possibility of collecting the main gimmick that separates the Game Pain from any other strikeout show from every other player in the season. And if you think I'm done, let's play a little clip from the show itself.
So I got a clue in my letter that said, I quote, choose the color cyan.
Now, while it may seem I'm just reiterating a previous point, this actually brings me into another issue of the challenge. Depending on what color you select, you could get an immensely beneficial spawn. The color you pick should never give you an advantage. This is how racism starts, Derek. The annoying part about this is that this was the season where preliminaries were removed, because placing people in more advantageous spots based on preliminary placements would have been leagues better without giving anyone explicit instructions on where the second chance button is. What just popped up on screen is my 3 biggest issues with this challenge, and I'm going to go through some fixes that I believe would have helped the challenge be the best version of itself that it can be. First of all, just make diamonds rare. I think people need to actually make choices about what diamond gear they want instead of just ending up with a full suit by the end of the challenge. It would make the mining section actually interesting and feel important, instead of just feeling like padding until people randomly stumble into each other. Second, have lava rise from the bottom of the map as the challenge goes on. This forces players to go up, eventually reaching the top, limiting the y-axis that players could use to not encounter each other, removing resources from the possibility of being collected, and puts a time cap on the challenge. Finally, make it so only the last player alive is safe and the other 8 go into a PvP tournament where the loser of that is eliminated. This way the entire first round has a point to it. Not only does one player being safe mean the tensions stay high until that one player's left, it means the faster you die, the less resources you have for that tournament. Sure, the person dies still has to wait, but implement the other changes and the challenge won't last for half an hour. Although then I suppose the time that originally went to round 1 would go to the tournament, but still, there's less waiting for the people who die first before they can fight again. Despite all my complaints I have about this challenge, I don't hate it. It has loads of missed potential, sure, but at the very least the challenge is skill-based. And even if you die first due to a fluke or being unfortunate enough to run into air, there's a second chance to kill the other unfortunate fool who also ran into air. It just isn't what it could be, but hey, it's not the first season's version. Nearly 700 words to talk about one challenge, and while I won't fact-check this after I finish the script, I think that might actually be more than I have to say about the rest of Season 6. 6 seasons in, and we haven't quite escaped the Strikeout Game Show remixed by Derek era yet. In the certified cult classic Game of Pain episode, Pink Lemonade, we have King of the Ladder from Strikeout Season 2. Side note, King of the Ladder has permeated the game show community to such an absurd degree that the words King of the Hill sound fucking ridiculous to me. The main issue with King of the Ladder is that the end of round format means that 90% of the challenge doesn't matter until the last 10 seconds of each round where one lucky bastard claims safety. While it can be enjoyable to watch people try and shoot each other off the entire time, the fact is that the main game itself is not well balanced. It doesn't matter if you're doing swimmingly, absolutely perfect for 95% of the round. If you fail in that last 5%, all that hard work goes to waste. But I guess that's also just how last place game shows work as a whole, isn't it? Now, I should preface these next two by saying that the comparisons I make to Strikeout here should not be taken 100% seriously. Calling these next two challenges Strikeout ripoffs would be claiming that Strikeout inherently owns these concepts as challenges. It's like saying that a music note should belong to a specific artist. These next two are single notes, but King of the Ladder is just specific enough that's like an entire riff. This is just a good segue to start talking about these next two challenges. With that being said, hide and seek is just Striker Myers, ain't it? But in all reality, hiding from the host feels like there's a bit of a luck factor depending on where said host goes. I guess you could consider it mind games, but it just rubs me the wrong way. It's not offensively bad, but it's nothing to write home about either. The finale in our trilogy of Derek playing Homework Copying Simulator is the Enderpearl race. I fucking love Enderpearl races. Do I have to have an explanation? Well, actually, yeah, I kinda do. This is a ranking video where I'm supposed to be as objective as possible about my own subjective opinions. Okay, first of all, they're just fun, and they aren't ridiculously overused. But if we have to talk about the actual mechanics of the challenge itself, let's be honest, most people aren't exactly familiar with how Minecraft trajectory works, especially because Enderpearls have been outclassed as the end-based transportation method since 1.19. The smallest difference in mouse positions, or player position, or even player momentum can change the shot drastically. Maybe you could say Derek was a little too generous with the checkpoints, and maybe Derek could have added a room where Enderpearl glitching was required. But you know what? Fuck that. I've been negative about this season for 7.5 minutes. The difficulty curve was done very well in this challenge. There's no fancy tricks to it, it's just that each room expands on what you've learned from the previous rooms. Starting out with a medium-sized area with a large hole, each room, the hole gets smaller and the area gets bigger until it goes from making a general shot to having to thread a needle with precision. It's the perfect evolution of skill throughout the challenge until you can claim your safety. Oh boy! What's next? Fuck. Well, personal vendettas aside, this is actually a pretty good challenge. Here's a tip, folks. Want to make an original challenge? Go the biathlon route. Stealing 1 challenge is plagiarism. Stealing 2 is originality. Now, despite Derek himself naming this challenge Biathlon Duels, it's actually a lot better than that would lead you to believe. In a biathlon, you just need to complete 2 challenges, then finish. But when you finish one of the challenges, that's it. You're done with it. Here, both aspects of the challenge are constantly being brought to attention. By completing the parkour, you get just enough arrows to complete the archery aspect. If you are a perfect shot, miss even 1 shot, and you're back to the parkour. It's a subtle distinction, but it makes the parkour, half the challenge feel like a genuinely important part of it for the entirety of the episode. Obviously, the archery continues to be important as you need to complete it for safety. Not to mention, having it be duels makes the recording process so much easier than the free-for-all was in Season 2. It's probably the best challenge of the season, which is a fact that my narcissistic ass absolutely hates. Alright, Stolen Treasure, which, may I remind you, is the only challenge this season to actually use the theme. Here's a little fun fact for you. There were issues getting this challenge going because it just wasn't working. The issue? The scoreboard value had been deleted and had to be re-added. The challenge is find buttons in an ocean monument, which is a very maze-like structure. I fucking hate Find the Button, and I despise mazes. And yet I really like this challenge for 4 reasons. 1. Multiple buttons. Having one round with multiple buttons allows players to constantly find buttons and claim points. But while it's still on the tin luck-based, there isn't the frustration with getting no progress as someone else keeps finding the hidden buttons before you do. 2. The buttons regenerate. Once you find some good high-value buttons, neither the luck nor the maze factor matters much anymore. Of course, that would mean you could camp high-value spots, which would be an issue if it wasn't for 3. The murder aspect. Dying is a threat which shockingly makes the maze aspect of the temple work to the challenge's benefit, as it means you can't easily rely on the same 3 buttons coming back to rack up an absurd amount of points. It encourages exploration and memorization of the maze, as well as the possibility that every corner may lead to combat. And 4. Death subtracting points encourages PvP. That's pretty cool. That's it. That's the end of the sentence. The craziest part about it is that any 4 of these aspects on its own would not have saved this challenge and potentially might have actually made it worse.
Here's the door to your body, you see? And these are oversized novelty germs. That's influenza, that's bronchitis, and this cute little cuddlebug is pancreatic cancer. Here's what happens when they all try to get through the door at once.
Alright, vanilla down, babies. First of all, I would have buried both of these assholes in this challenge. But more importantly, Battle for the Treasure is a far better gauntlet type challenge than Parkour Adventure ever was. Parkour is a big part of this final challenge, but it has a decency to actually be interesting, which Season 4 couldn't do with an entire challenge based on different parkours. So, that's a bonus. The first is normal, difficult jumps, and then there's a short section with pistons that could push you off, which, considering it's at the start, allows the final 2 to potentially sabotage each other without it being too frustrating late into the challenge. Take a small break for a little minecart section, which, well, once it's been solved, is free each time. Nothing's stopping the players from sabotaging the course after they pass a turn. Next parkour is an easy parkour with a caveat that there's fire shooting at you. After that, you have what's almost a maze as you have to find your way up before ending with a ladder segment. The challenge constantly shifts, but it keeps the central idea. Add on to that the final electrode glide to cap off the challenge with one last bit of tension on if they're actually going to make it. It keeps the stakes high throughout the entire challenge. Unfortunately, Derek neutered this tension by editing in CGQ's other 2 appearances, all but confirming that he made the glide and won. But that little hiccup is not nearly enough to drag this season down from respectable 3rd place. Wait, do I have something wrong here?
Let's try. If you are first out, you are not eliminated. There's some sort of twist for this episode. And don't worry, it's not voting. It's not voting.
I'm gonna have to take myself out.
Okay, dude, stop saying that hard.
I got it.
Jane, don't take me. Zombie.
Bye, zombie. I'm flicking the liver myself.
You know what? Let's go out with a bang. Let's go over here.
Dedicus, you're not fucking yes. Kind of a fun twist. This vote is for Aaron.
At least he's so from Total Drama Minecraft did not strike out this time? There are 67 episodes of the Game of Pain. Exactly one of them eliminates someone with a vote. You have created a show built off of strikeout, and randomly decided one asshole gets to not be the sole survivor. This isn't even early season. This is after the All-Star season. You have thoroughly decided this show is skill-based. To make it worse, this is episode 2. Who did he think we were going to go for other than the one person who had won something? There's evidence of one person being a threat to our skill-based game. Aaron was fucked from the moment he won episode 1. Remember how I had a 3-step plan to fix my issues with Battle of the Blocks? Here's my 2-step plan to fix Witch Trials. Step 1, delete. Step 2, make anything else. This single episode is so fucked, it lowered the entire season by at least 2 rankings. It genuinely might have been able to reach number 2 if this episode stuck the landing. I hate this episode, and frankly, I have no regrets for breaking the glass wall after I died. Deal with it, Derek. I was that asshole. This season had the potential to be something great. However, unfortunately, rocky first half with a terrible second episode dragged down the rather quite good last 4 episodes. Those last 4 might actually be the best collection of last 4 episodes this series has, and yet it's down here at 6th. We get a flawed but enjoyable first episode, the worst thing the Game of Pain has ever done, and we still have to get through 2 strikeout challenges being plagiarized before getting anything good. And even that comes with a caveat that the first of those good challenges isn't exactly original. Yeah, ender races are fun, but they're still basic challenges that could do with some sort of twist to make them interesting. I do wish I was invited to a stronger season, but at least it wasn't season 4.
I'll steal it! No one will ever know!
This was originally ranked first back in 2019. I was a dumbass. The season isn't bad, don't twist it, but it isn't quite the peak of early Game of Pain that I thought it was. Right off the bat, I have to question the intro. Burst into Flames is low-key a bop, and it's playing right now. Post-script writing Dedicus here. Turns out that song has some copyright issues, so I won't be using it. and I'm too lazy to do a rewrite, so I'm gonna make an impromptu decision right now at 4:23 in the morning and sticking with it. So, Snake Man's theme from Smash Ultimate. There's also an irony to the plagiarism season, having copyrighted material in it. Also, yes, I am aware of how cursed my Minecraft skin looks backwards. But why is there so much fluff before the renders start showing up? The intro is 31 seconds long, and 13 seconds of that is random splotches of color over dark oak planks. Why? Granted, Campaign is no stranger to long intros. Even with all the fluff, it's only tied for the 4th longest. But every other intro at least has things going on for the entire thing. Except for Season 2, that was even worse with it. If you're curious, here are the intro times. The funny part is, without the fluff, this intro is 18 seconds long, making it the second shortest instead. I know it's a small issue, but this is the first thing we see each episode. The first 13 seconds of every episode is nothing. As for the cast, apparently someone had leaked the season, as well as Jeffels' apparently saltiness at his elimination. Yeah, I didn't get that vibe. The entire cast seemed good to me. Jeffels got slandered here. I am #Jeffels apologist. Unless he was the one who spoiled the season, then he can suck a look at my bing bong. Now, the gimmick of this season is that because Game Pain got too popular... Because Game Pain got too popular... the other game shows took over. Considering the shows he took from were primarily last place eliminated type shows, the plagiarism instead comes from taking the challenges rather than the show's concepts. Which I actually do like. Provided you build upon what made the challenges you are taking so good, considering you could also tie into the new theme of the season where Derek has to quote-unquote defeat the other game shows. Taking a look at the line of game shows being taken from, we have Trend Show, Strikeout, Auction House, the Mini Bronco Game Show, All for None, Back to Basics, Point of View, and Game of Pain. We can notice a pattern right off the bat. They are nearly all last place out style shows. Frankly, this is the best thing Derek could have done, as, in all honesty, while a game show that has every elimination follow a different rule set can work, hell, I've hosted one myself, Game of Pain is an already established show, so choosing game shows that share a similar rule set allows the season to keep its gimmick without creating a disparity between the challenge chosen and what they are referencing, which there seems to be one exception to. Episode 5, All for None. All for None is a show hosted by Unique Impact that revolves around one contestant being a traitor and trying to sabotage the rest of the cast. In turn, the rest of the cast must sniff out the traitor. Obviously, for a Game of Pain, you can't have them actually try to sniff out the traitor, seeing as the gimmick will either be thrown out right away, meaning that the traitor has no reason to do the traitor things, or have the traitor twist permeate into the rest of the season, which is an awful idea. So, Derek reveals the sneak and gives them a very simple task. Murder! This is the perfect use of the season's gimmick. Have the game shows being copied affect how the game is played while still being skill-based, aka a much better twist than Season 6 decided to do. And considering the wildly different roles of the contestants and the fact that it was a 1v4, it was shockingly well balanced, although the episode still does have some flaws. The addition of the bow was absolutely pointless considering you weren't allowed to hit the traitor. Why even include in the challenge? Granted, if you are allowed to shoot the traitor, it becomes absolutely one-sided. So the question is, why add it at all? At least have it have a durability of 5, meaning you have to A, use it sparingly, and B, make sure you actually hit the target. As it stands, what happened? Jeff was shot Globalist and Derek had to give out an extra 30 seconds to account for Jeff was being a twat. You still have to play around contestant stupidity and challenge making, Derek. I still have more grievances with how this challenge is set up. I'm a firm believer of physically stopping your contestants from doing things instead of just telling them they can't. First of all, stopping the traitor from killing those out of water while they are in the water could have been avoided by just lowering the water by 3 blocks. Second, banning camping on the tree. Why is the tree even here in general? Truthfully, I'm not sure how much I like this arena at all. It could have been a cool Bennett body moment where failure sends you tumbling to the bottom. Especially with the shields twist, it could have forced you to have to take risks by going higher up if all the shields in the bottom were taken. Speaking of which, the Totem of Undying was added in 1.11. This season was recorded in 1.12. If we're going by the honor system anyway, why not hold the traitor to that honor system, considering A, it's easier to lie about having a shield when it doesn't auto-disappear when you die, and B, the traitor's the one who the camera was following 80% of the time, so it's easier to hold them to that accountability. Despite all the issues, it's at least better than Season 4's Final 5 Parkour Challenge with Sabotage included. And as this was the episode with the Pain Idol being used, this is where I talk about the Pain Idol. The trivia questions this season were based on the game show community. Considering the theme of this season, it fits perfectly. I still dislike the way the Pain Idol is found each season, but if I have to live with it, this one ain't half bad. But, you know, trivia. Skip! The only other challenge that uses a game show whose rule set isn't simply last place eliminated is episode 3, Auction House. I wish Derek went with the different rule set here and had a second elimination challenge for the bottom 2 of the roller coaster build-off. It would still fit into the style of last places eliminated, especially with the Pain Idol challenge already as an elimination gimmick within the show. Because while I think the build-off was handled well with it having 4 distinct categories for contestants to strive for while building, at the end of the day, it's still Derek's subjective choice on the rankings given. Rideable was basically free 10 points across the board for anyone not brain dead. Fun is subjective, and unless Derek has a degree in engineering, I feel hesitant to call the realistic rating 100% objective here. I feel like efficiency is the closest ranking here to objective, and that one's just telling the contestants not to have the roller coasters be too long. The build-off could have been a good baseline to send the two in a bottom 2 to fight it out, but as the sole reason Zybe got eliminated, it is unfortunate. Then again, he deleted my only recorded game show win, so fuck it, he can suck a luck on my ding dong too. Although, I also want to mention the disadvantage real quick. I know they aren't supposed to be a death sentence, but deleting detector rails only? They're literally so obscure, I accidentally put down activator rails in the script at first and I had to double check. On the flip side, I do appreciate the advantage from last episode being emeralds that buy the extra minute to tie into the theme of the show being used. Hey, is that a segue I see? The Emerald advantage is definitely one of the most unique advantages I've ever seen. First of all, it's tied to the show's copying, which is a cool concept. I wish more advantages tied into the lore of the game show instead of simply have an arbitrary increase in points because you won the last episode. Unfortunately, the way the emeralds are earned fucks it up. Before talking about why I hate episode 2's method of giving out the advantage, I have to talk about episode 2. Derek claims this episode specifically is the episode that copies Strikeout, like the entire first season doesn't exist. Anywho, as this game show takes the most iconic of challenges from seasons it borrows, there were definitely a few that stand out. King of the Ladder is one of the big ones, but Derek went with Striker Myers. But for some reason made it Pokemon themed? Okay then. Striker Myers, while an iconic strikeout challenge, will naturally always have the same flaw. It can feel like safety is completely out of your control most times. While Striker was able to mitigate this problem by balancing the challenge so escaping him is actually possible, with the game Pain it really isn't. With the way the hills are set up, contestants may be able to run away, but with how slow traversal is, you will never lose Derek. Just hopefully maybe run the timer long enough for him to see someone else. Not to mention, the arena is just painfully boring. Striker had an entire city that contestants could run through and jump through buildings or hide within them. This is just a bunch of ant mounds. Also, remember I said Derek had to improve the concepts of the challenges he was taking? Yeah, this ain't it, Chief. The advantage to be earned in this challenge is just confusing. First of all, why would you mess with the advantage system while stealing from the show that created the advantage system you stole in the first place? Not even a well-done twist. You have to find the advantage in Mewtwo's home base. However, no one knew this except the advantage winner from last episode. The first issue is that doing well in this challenge grants safety, where you no longer participate in the challenge, which means you can no longer find the advantage and are less likely to earn it. The exact opposite of how the advantage works normally. Not to mention, with only Jeffels being told where the advantage is, the advantage for last episode was a greater chance to get the advantage for this episode, which, funnily enough, is how the advantage normally works, but in every other case, the advantage is tied to winning and subsequently being safe. The advantage for episode 1 becomes pointless to make it through this episode, and considering the fact that Jeffels knows the advantages in this building, it means Derek is more likely to go there when he can't find anyone else, making the advantage potentially dangerous as you are being directed towards potential death, meaning you are closer to being eliminated as punishment for winning episode 1! Hey look, another segue. So I asked Derek, and apparently this challenge was not taken from the trend show, so I get to judge it on its own merits alone. It's a PvP battle royale, man, what do you want me to say? It's called High Noon Bow Battle, and yet swords are an option. You had an easy chance for a gimmick, and you fucked it. Then again, last season had a free-for-all bull battle as episode 1, but if you're worried about doing the same things 2 seasons in a row, why not just use an entirely different challenge? Also, it being last person alive carries with it the issue that all PvP free-for-all challenges have. It awards camping. Having it be the last 2 alive makes it even worse, as at least if it's the last single person alive, the campers have to earn safety through getting at least 1 kill, even if it's through cleaning up, which is still an issue in this challenge anyway. But with 2 left, every single person engaging in active combat kills each other, and the bastard hiding in the outhouse earns safety by being a coward. Despite my complaints with the challenge, and I still like it, it relies on players' own skill in relation to the other players, and as for the campers, if found, they will probably die, as if they're unskilled to need to camp, they're not skilled enough to get a kill. Besides, what can I say? PvP is fun. Alright. PvP is fun and so is watching it. Sometimes it's hard to beat the simplicity of hit each other until someone dies. But there is one thing that really bugs me. Most of the challenge, the campers potentially being safe is fine enough as they have to actually be able to hide, which this map isn't built for. However, in the last round of 3 contestants, where dying caused 0 elimination, that's an issue. Rewarding the person who doesn't engage in combat by avoiding elimination while someone who actively fought for their place in the show loses it. Beyond that, Globe, who actually killed Razoo for the first out of 2 times in gameplay history, got the disadvantage. The 2 players who actively played the game this round got off worse than Skelly, who just camped the entire round. I love Skelly, he's a great dude, but man did not deserve the safety. The quick fix is, after Globalist killed Razoo, have a last 1v1 round to make sure whoever gets eliminated really had the chance to save themselves. But no, it feels like Razoo got eliminated while people who could have been even worse at the challenge got to skate by. I mean, sure, Razoo might be one of the few people I could actually see Skelly winning in a PvP battle with, but that's not the point. The same thing could have happened to someone much better. Oh hey look, is that another segue? No, it's not, but we need to get to the next section, so. Mini Bronco game show? Really? Okay, sure. And it was actually based on a challenge from the Mini Bronco game show. The game show doesn't exist, and I have no footage of it. Of fucking course. From what Derek said, the first challenge was mine diamonds in a big stone ball. Which, yeah, Derek's version was slightly better, which, hey, improving the challenge taken. I'm still ripping it to shreds though. I need to make this video mildly interesting. The challenge just feels like find a chest, get riggedy wrecked who's already claimed. There's only 1 chest in the entire map that has an actual challenge built into it, and it's just a bunch of 3-block jumps. So, do you remember when I said it could have been a cool Bennett Foddy moment where failure sends you tumbling to the bottom? Yeah, that's doubly true here. Making the higher chest values be at the top of an incredibly difficult vertical challenge could result in a genuinely tense gameplay loop. Considering you have to go back to drop off the diamonds after each looting, it could make the contestants actually have to deeply think about if it's worth it to grab the chest that's reachable now, or go higher in search of an even higher score. As it stands, it's boring, and while I won't call it awful, as at the very least traversing the bone meal trees requires some semblance of kill, I can't give it high praise. First of all, Back to Basics is kind of a based choice for a game show to take from, and second, why do I 100% agree with Back to Basics being synonymous with Final 4 Bed Wars? Why is that the takeaway from the entirety of Back to Basics? Now, while I'm sure Derek was glad Juffles went to the fucking Shadow Realm here, but Bed Wars doesn't really lend itself to a last place eliminated format, as once again, Skelly gets rewarded for not playing the challenge, this time as far as getting the advantage. Although 3 rounds is far too much and a 3-player Bed Wars round would have massive cleanup issues, a 1v1 round at the end of the first one could be useful. Granted, how the challenge actually went, these changes would have led to the same outcome, but in many other cases this could lead to a more fair game, or at least one where the loser doesn't have to sit for potentially way too much fucking time for a winner to be crowned. Remember kids, if someone has already been eliminated, don't make them wait for their sentencing. In Hypixel Bed Wars, there's no reason for you to have to wait out a game when you die, you can just go right into the next one. Here, the loser has to stick around due to recorded game show etiquette. But fuck it, Bed Wars, yeah! You know what, shout out to Derek for being cool as Jeff was breaking the wall. You gotta reward contestant creativity. But I'm not really sure what to add here because everyone knows about Bed Wars. So I was actually going to try and find a video essay explaining why Bed Wars was good so I could skirt my responsibilities as the ranker for this video. But looking it up, it autofills to negatives. Does anyone actually like this game? Looking up the opposite just brings us to guides. There's no one actually talking positively. Well, in any case, I like Bed Wars, but, you know, it's Bed Wars. Dropper Floater is an odd challenge to take from point of view, but you have to consider that the first episode of this season campaign was released 8 days before the finale for Point of View Season 2. Considering both editing and building time, I think it's fair to say that Season 2 of Point of View wasn't being considered for Campaign Season 3, which means we only have the pool of Season 1 challenges to pick from. So it makes sense why we have no Beam Block Dash representation here. Shifting Through the Fight is a free-for-all archery challenge, which was already done this season. Race to the Themes of Build challenge, already done. Puzzle-Rama is just terrible. Shooting Through Hell really only works in a tournament style, and Final Four was taken. And the Ultimate Standoff is the finale, which would only work for a not finale episode if the show's entire season was about stealing finale challenge specifically. Damn, maybe that would have made the season rank higher. But yeah, that leaves only Down and Up and Through the Cavern. Maybe having 2 Elytra challenges in a row would be too much, so you know what? Perfect choice. Now, why did I go on that tangent? I have nothing to say about Dropper Floater. It's alright, but you can tell it's from Kaj's first outing. Go down, go up. Derek gets points for adding PvP, which is a simple but amazing addition, but then loses those points by only having 1 map, or alternatively, maybe even worse, having multiple maps that all look the same. Come on, the original had things like water, use it. Maybe add some slime blocks or cobwebs. I think Derek gains slightly more points than he loses, however. Having the finale being Game of Pain, while contradicting the whole thing at the start of the season where every Game of Pain challenge was destroyed and replaced, is both funny and fitting. So I guess Game of Pain took over Game of Pain? Is that why Season 4 was so bad? Trying to recover from being Schrodinger's game show? Now, I have to mention that the staple challenge from Game of Pain is stolen from Strikeout, and I've already talked about it. Fuck! Sure, it's fitting, but it's Fly to the Place Derek edition. I have no fucking clue what you want me to say, especially as Season 4 had the most interesting version of it. Season 4! I was supposed to give a compliment to what has been and will be the punching bag of this whole ranking. This episode still has the same issues. The arena's too small, and Elytras are too bland of a concept. Scripting this segment was annoying. It came off as so much more negative than I wanted it to. I do like this season, but every challenge, even when I did things right, I had issues. Outside of Mewtwo Myers, each challenge is one I would actually consider at least okay. It's just that none were able to escape having some fatal flaw or criminally little to talk about. This season is the most consistent so far. It just so happens that consistency is in challenges that have flaws that need to be mentioned. Especially considering the gimmick was stealing challenges, Derek had to do something special with each one to make them stand out, but he just didn't. I like to end on a strong note, but considering that you need to explain a challenge and what makes it good to properly address what was done wrong, and every episode unfortunately does at least one thing very wrong, it comes off as a lot more negative, except Fly to the Place, which has no major issue, just no meat on its bones to talk about that I haven't already. Game of Pain, Fly to the Place issues, you know? I don't think too lowly of my past self for putting it at first, and while I no longer think it's deserving that high of praise, still a good time all around. Yeah, baby, All-Star Season, let's go! All-Star Seasons are one of my favorite concepts in game shows. Seeing the best of the best go head-to-head is really interesting. Early boots are shocking because these players who have done so well previously are getting out at the beginning. And by the end, you're looking at the best of those already deemed good enough to be All-Stars battle it out and whittled down until you have the best of the best. Which is why the casting choices for the season baffle me. Okay, Darkrai Killer, Ben, and Ralph all make sense. They were finalists. But out of the rest of the cast, the highest any of them placed was 5th, which was Lolsby in Season 2. Breakfast in the OG Season 5 and Zombie in Season 2 placed 6th. Max and Razoo placed 7th in their seasons, and Slinger is a first boot. It's so odd how 4 of the players are finalists and the rest of the cast feels more at home in a not-star season. I suppose you could argue that in Season 3.5, Breakfast won Redemption, but he got out right after that anyway, so who cares? At this point in the series, there were 3 contestants who got top 4 twice, being Jeffles, Panda, and Aura, and none of them are seen. But Slinger, who got first boot in the longest and most nerfed parkour seen in the community to date, gets it? The All-Stars theme is the easiest one to stick to, and you still fucked it up.
Breakfast was the #1 most voted for cast member.
It was voting? First of all, who was voting? And second, call it the favorite season then, not fucking All-Stars. Hell, you could have made it fans versus favorites. Then again, considering the atrocities you committed in season 4.5 of Digi, that kind of proves the bad idea. This season is an enigma, because originally it was ranked 3rd, but on a final rewatch I noticed something. This season starts and ends very strongly, but there are 4 episodes right after each other that get worse and worse until the 4th is so bad, I had to bump the entire season down a slot. If I had the same critical eye I do now when I first watched the season, I would have been genuinely furious with having to wait for some of these episodes, and then them turning out how they did. Starting with the first of the 4 episodes, I lied. Capture Competition PvP, first of all, I get the name referencing Mario Odyssey, which released in 2017. I guess fuck my recollection of time. But I mean, Derek, Super Smash Blocks was right there. Second, it's not actually bad. Granted, it's a Battle Royale PvP, and if you take a look at the round format, it goes 96-3. Another fucking Final 3 PvP situation where the asshole who doesn't fight gets rewarded by being allowed to get free safety. Then cleanup, so the 2 people who actually fight, one gets eliminated, another gets the disadvantage. You can really make any number of Battle Royale PvP fights work by simply giving people safety when they get a kill. For 9 people, the first round 4 people get a kill and are safe. The 4 who died and the 1 who got no kill move on to the next round. 5 people, 2 people get a kill and are safe. 3 people, 1 person gets a kill and is safe. And then the last 2 people who got no kills up until this point, 1v1, loser is eliminated. This works for any number of people as well, and Jolt's did something similar for Final 8 of Lit Game Show Season 6. If you want to know how many rounds this type of PvP will take you, count the number of players, round up to the nearest power of 2, and count the digits of that number in binary. This isn't actually practical or anything, I just wanted to flex my nerd knowledge. And also, this is the 3rd time I've complained about PvP Battle Royale, so I have to mix it up somehow. I'm ashamed that in the 4 viewings this season, it took quite literally me writing the first part of this segment to realize that all the kits were Mario Odyssey captures. Despite the name of the challenge. And the multiple kits that are quite literally exclusive to Mario Odyssey. If at any point you thought this list was objectively correct, you can now see why it is a flawed assumption. Anywho, your Chain Chomp is your basic early game PvP kit, the default that you base all others on. Charging Chuck is a low DPS damage sponge, however I appreciate the speed being raised instead of being lowered as is the norm. Bullet Bill is quite literally just Chain Chomp without a helmet. Sherm is funny because despite being a literal tank, it ain't the tank kit, but it's your long range alternative to the Chain Chomp / Bullet Bill. The Fire Bro might be my favorite, trading some of the defense from the Sherm for extra damage from the fire. In addition, the fire covers your opponent's screen and slows them down. The Dino is your glass cannon archetype, no complaints here, except for me wondering why the fucking dinosaur is the frail one. The frog is just bad. Glydon is completely frail and weak, and though the Elytra could have been interesting, it lacks the fireworks that gives it the versatile area control archetype, and the Paraguma is literally the frog but worse. It feels like there are 3 tiers of kits that are deciding factor for victory rather than skill. Now this challenge, in a vacuum, is good, but with the few flaws it does have, I feel like it warrants being allowed to be the head of the downward spiral that is the middle of this season. Because 4 challenges in a row being bad sounds better than 3, but I do have to give credit where credit is due. The skit with Slinger leaving is funny as hell, making the best of a bad situation. This one will be much quicker. It's build battle, but worse than it was in Season 3. If you remember, I praised Season 3 for having one theme with categories that the contestants had to work towards. Well, at the end of the day, it's still subjective who should win. It gives contestants a clear guide to what they should build for to earn safety, and then they must be creative while adhering to those rules. Also, by having a dedicated theme, it makes sure each contestant is judged on an even playing field. I can see the argument that a theme limits creativity. The issue is that you can end up with decisions you regret. Oh hey, look at that! It's unfortunate because Derek has shown he is capable of doing build battle well. It was by stealing directly from someone else, but small victories. For all you upcoming game show hosts out there, at the beginning, you will plagiarize challenges, but it is important to learn why those challenges work and why they're good enough for you to want to steal in the first place. Derek did not. Next up is parkour rooms. The best thing I can say about it is that it's only one parkour challenge out of 9 instead of 3.5 out of 7. Jokes about Season 4 aside, Season 4 actually did the variety parkour thing better than this season. You can see my praise for that challenge way back at the start of this video. Let's get my 2 biggest contradicting points out of the way now. The episode is too long, and having it be split into 2 parts spoils the pain idol usage. But frankly, there's an 11-minute period where nothing happens. I'll be honest, I skimmed through this episode because of how disinteresting it was. Speaking of not being interested, 3 sounds like he doesn't even want to be here.
2, 3.
Oh, breakfast takes
Oh, you little guy.
second.
Oh,
Killer moves on to the next
I'm
room.
Wait, oh my god, my mouse is...
Breakfast misses the last jump. Killer's moving on. You gotta do a Neo jump. Does the Neo.
Oh, no, I'm bad
and he's
at
in the
Neos, I'm
final
done.
room. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in this room.
Killer's going up. Killer's gotta do cactus.
Yeah.
What the...
Killer's gonna do some cactus jumps. Killer's do some ladder jumps. I don't think I saw any ladders in the entire thing. You know what?
I'm totally bad at that.
Dude! Killer won!
2 questions. First, how are you unsure of Killer's position when you are staring at him making the jump? And second, could that victory proclamation be any less enthusiastic? As for the actual parkours, first the normal parkour, perfectly average, clean slate. Its reputation depends on what's to follow, which, spoiler, means I don't like it. The fences are the strongest part of this, with the slightly different jumps in the back and forth, which is then followed by the most boring ladder parkour known to man, and that is followed by the most boring slime parkour known to woman. Finally, we have the cactus parkour. Cactus parkour is not boring, but by God, it is about the most infuriating parkour known to the pantheons above. The animal room is good, I'll give him that much. I have to appreciate the signs on the barriers warning players instead of just telling the players to go fuck themselves and figure it out. As for the room that follows, Neos are not a substitution for interesting jumps, Derek. The last room is a combination of all the previous rooms. I didn't care much for the gimmicks then, why would I now that they are in a nausea-inducing room, Derek? As this was the challenge where the pain idol was played, this is the challenge we'll be talking about the pain idol. The trivia questions were all game pain related, which I guess makes sense for an all-star season. It's still trivia though. Skip! Now, I'm going to preface this next segment by once again specifying that the camera issues were not Derek's fault, and as such, I will not be taking that into consideration. With that disclaimer out of the way, Pikmin Puzzle is a bad puzzle challenge. Here's a little secret about me. Puzzle challenges are actually my favorite challenge archetype, when they are done well. It can be amazing watching along and seeing if you can spot the solution before the contestants playing. Of course, this requires the puzzle to actually be fun. Pikmin Puzzle requires the contestants search an area for items that may be the answer to riddles found in a collection of books, with the gimmick of the challenge being that the red Pikmin cannot touch water and the blue Pikmin cannot touch lava. First of all, that's more Fire Boy and Water Girl than Pikmin, but I get it. Pikmin is by far the superior series. But the real issue starts with the fact that these puzzles are entirely uninteresting. There's no actual puzzle aspect, it's simply blue go in water, find room, red go in lava, find room. You could have had interesting mechanics like having to direct water through a piston maze to destroy an out-of-reach crop, or had to utilize lava to shoot a flaming arrow into some TNT, but it's all stagnant. And the worst part? Despite there being one gimmick for the challenge, it's broken. The blue Pikmin is given a fire resistance potion to wade through lava. You had one fucking rule making this challenge even slightly unique, and you threw it away! The next major problem are the riddles. Not even a third of the way through the player's run, they end up with all or nearly all of the items and have to figure out the riddles. And look, dude, I know your dyslexia has improved, but I am helpful too in combat when I am dead. I can also befriend. If your challenge relies on reading, use a fucking spell checker! Beyond that, the inclusions of the riddles as the end goal at all is in contrast to having the Pikmin-based puzzles. Let's pretend that the puzzle aspect was well done. There is a concept called intrinsic reward that states that completing a task is its own reward. In the game show community, that would be being declared safe from elimination or even winning a game show entirely. And the YouTube channel Second Wind made an excellent point about puzzles that sums up my biggest issue with this challenge. far better than I ever could. When you defeat a difficult boss or win a match, the reward is immediate both to you and the game. You are happy and the boss is dead, or you are happy and you see the victory screen. But with puzzles, there's a dissonance between yourself and the game. The moment you realize the solution to the puzzle, your brain dispenses those happy chemicals. But in the game's perspective, you haven't won until you implement that solution. So the longer the gap between realizing the solution and implementing it, the more apathy the player will feel as their brain has already produced the happy chemicals. And just putting into action what you've already deduced won't feel as satisfying. And there's the issue. Even if Derek had made the most interesting puzzles involving water and lava conceived by mankind, after you solve the puzzles the challenge is named for, and should be based around, you still have to sit around decoding the riddles. It makes any reward from the Pikmin part of Pikmin puzzle absolutely meaningless. And speaking of rewards, it's obvious I dislike this challenge. I'll be honest, with the previous 3, despite my issues, I am fine with all of them. They were a build-up to this. And truth be told, although even if what I'm about to talk about wasn't an issue, I would still agree with bumping the season down one placement. I would not have thought to bump it down if Derek had not done what I believe to be the biggest fuck-up in Game of Pain history. Yes, bigger than having one single vote for no reason in episode 2 when there's only one clear target for everyone, the advantage book in this challenge. Now, I put my feelings about hidden books aside for this ranking. It's a part of Game Pain as a whole and thus affects every season equally, but Derek had the genius idea to put this book in a challenge where contestants go 2 at a time, which means if one of the first 2 finds it, the other 4 have no chance. Oh wait, 2 and 4? No, I mean 1 and 2. Not only are some players at a disadvantage for finding this by proxy of going later, it is only available to the water players. Anyone who chose to be a red Pikmin cannot find this advantage book without incurring a penalty, which they would never do, as anyone with a single brain cell bouncing around their head would assume it's another potential riddle answer and not a fucking advantage. As if just to rub salt in the wound, Derek decided that the tiebreaker for a puzzle-based challenge should be PvP. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain that having the tiebreaker be a complete 180 from the rest of the challenge is a bad thing. Frankly, I think a double elimination suits us much better. Granted, we wouldn't have one of the future challenges, which are far better, but it would have been more appropriate. Especially as this challenge went on for over an hour. And then Derek decided to partner up a member from the winning and losing team. This means that someone from the losing team could get absolutely robbed by getting paired up with someone from the winning team who is really good at puzzles, but really garbage at PvP. At least the skit with the missing footage at the end is funny, making the best of a bad situation. Such a damn shame, too. Considering the rest of the season is so fucking amazing! First is levitation oxidization. This name would be a lot funnier if this challenge was made after Copper was introduced, but that's beside the point. This is a stellar start to the season. If we look at other challenges using levitation, Portal Protectors from Whose Game Is It?, Hermes Heroes from Tribal Wars, and Levitation from Strikeout, Portal Protectors used levitation for a movement course in which you had to utilize levitation's different momentum and movement rules to make it to the end. Hermes Heroes uses levitation with obstacles and cliff heads around the arena, which you can use to decide where you want to be in a PvP free-for-all. And levitation allows you to toggle levitation and not. Now all of those are great challenges in their own right, and each forces players to add levitation into their normal Minecraft gameplay. Portal Protectors is still an obstacle course with a clear path. Hermes Heroes and levitation are both still PvP, but with the caveat that levitation is used to generate different Y values for players. But Derek did something different. He used levitation's simple rule of player go up to replace Minecraft's normal mechanics. There's no potential variation here. Nothing for contestants to have a learning curve about. Fly up, get in the hole. Prevent others from doing the same. He used levitation as a natural time limit for the contestants to do their PvP madness. And once that time limit is up, whether contestants want to or not, the round is over. Someone got in that hole, and if it wasn't you, you're due for another timer, motherfucker. It's challenges like these that prove one very critical thing. Simplicity is not bad. Unoriginality is. You don't need a PhD to understand how this challenge works or its rules, but fucking hell is it still peak. Now, on the other end of the Great Divide, we have Luigi's Mansion. Now, one complaint I've heard from a good friend of mine about challenges like Striker Myers is that if the host messes up, it can lead to undeserving people gaining safety. Truthfully, I'm still on the fence about that part myself, but there's one thing I know for certain. That criticism has no relation to this challenge, baby. The simple change of having the contestants hunt each other down does a surprising amount. Any failures are on the contestants' part, not the hosts. Now, I wonder if anyone should be talked about in particular. Anyway, it also means that each contestant gets their own run as the killer, and the great part about that is that at the start of the challenge, you have no frame of reference for how you did, but there's also no deadline to worry about. Near the end, you can compare yourself to where you should be, but there's a time limit looming in front of you, and if you miss it, you are eliminated. I think the one thing I would personally change about this challenge is instead of the advantage being extra time, it would allow the contestants to choose when they would like to be the killer. For example, the person who came in first last challenge picks first slot. For example, 3. Then whoever came in second would be able to pick from first, second, fourth, or fifth, so on and so forth. Advantage books would raise your placement in picking a slot by 1. It would fix my only real complaint about the challenge being that as the rounds go on, each contestant will have a different level of experience with the building as both the hider and the hunter. In my opinion, hunters in the later rounds are at a disadvantage as hunters in the earlier rounds can explore the entire mansion and find potential hiding spots, while the hiders have a much more difficult time exploring the mansion to its fullest. Although even then, one could argue that the earlier hunters have not had an opportunity to find hiding places, making it harder to locate any competitors hiding in said hiding spots. So this advantage idea could allow players the opportunity to decide on the best amount of rounds hiding before going out to have to find the hiders. I'd probably go with second round, personally. I also appreciate how the building is set up in a way that while there are nooks and crannies to hide in, there are no actual true hiding spots, so the challenge becomes more about maneuverability and outwitting the hunter, rather than simply sitting in a corner waiting for them to eventually find you. Although, come on, Derek, let them go to the second floor, you're giving me blue balls here. Bottom 4, fuck yeah, King of the Hill. And you can't even say he copied Striker, cause it ain't King of the Ladder. Speaking of which, why would you downgrade this in Season 6, Derek? The two biggest faults of King of the Ladder: it takes way too long to climb up and get a chance to claim the top, and only the last 10 seconds of each round matter. And you already had a challenge that fixed both of these issues, with the hill always being easily accessible, and victory being based on the total amount of time you were on top of the hill. And it's amazing. We love /execute as @s if block ~1 block run command in this household. Frankly, I have nothing of note to say about this challenge. It's King of the Hill. I like the different parts of the hill giving different points, but considering only first place matters, the lower parts of the hill aren't important. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I didn't need those to be interesting, but nachos also don't need salsa to be amazing. I also like how Cole being the outer ring serves as a way to punish contestants every time they get hit off the hill. The only thing I would say is maybe glowing in invis should have been standard from the start to prevent teaming, but on the other hand, teaming can make for entertaining content, so maybe we don't have to give a fuck. Epic Item Competition is literally just Minecraft the challenge, and that's pretty neat. It's the only time this entire season you could debatably say Derek copied Striker, and if we say that, then that just means we're letting Striker own the concept of playing the fucking block game for challenges, and frankly, I refuse to do that. Seeing players mad dash to have to speedrun a random item like those YouTube shorts is just entertaining. Pure panic. Parkour and PvP? Yeah, you expect to see those every game show. Having to play the game how it was intended? What is this tomfoolery? But beyond that, there's not much to say about the challenge, so I guess we could just rank each individual item. Feather. Starts off with murder, and chickens dying is a funny noise. S tier. Cobblestone stairs. Only acceptable because waxed, lightly weathered, cut copper stairs were not in the game yet. B tier. Bucket. Most of the waiting time is smelting, and there's not enough of it for it to be long enough to become comedic. D tier. Polished diorite. Diorite. F tier. Lava bucket. Variation of previous item. But it's funny because now the poor sap who brought the buckets before now need to make a new one, but the one who failed at buckets doesn't. B tier. Stained glass. More smelting, but it's long enough to be funny. A tier. Grab him in the hospital. F tier. Wait, what? Finale is a good old-fashioned gauntlet. Popular as a finale challenge, this requires contestants to have skill in a variety of Minecraft aspects. On the one hand, it means the winner is the most balanced out of the two. On the other, it can feel very sporadic and without lending any grandiose feeling to the episode as a whole. There are two ways to fix the second issue. First, go the Digi Game Show route and have every mini challenge be part of a larger challenge. Or B, in other case, the most natural thing to do for a gauntlet is rank the sub-challenges. Let's go! Speedrun, baby! 13th, banners. Subjective challenges are fine and all, but they should not decide the winner of a season, especially as this was the last of the Gauntlet's minigames. 12th, Invisible Maze. These are infuriating. If you don't believe me, you've clearly never played in one, as well as luck-based. 11th, Fishing. Less infuriating, but now RNG luck-based instead of personal decision luck-based. 10th, Piston Puzzle. It's a piston puzzle. It can be painfully slow if contestants don't know what they're doing, but even outside of that, they're overdone. 9th, Mob Arena. Very cramped, no room for actual skillful plays, might be annoying if the mobs decide to fuck over one player because whack-ass AI. 8th, Shulker Wall. These are easy as fuck and provide no alteration. Jump, right-click, escape, repeat. 7th, Sumo. It's Sumo. Funny because rounds are either One Punch Man or Frieza vs. Goku. 6th, PvP. It's PvP. Slightly more interesting than Sumo because of middling round length. 5th, Parkour. It's unironically a better parkour than 95% of Season 4. Still parkour. 4th, Mining. I love this one. Yeah, it's ripped straight from Hypixel Party Game, but it tests reaction speeds. 3rd, Potions. I have more to say on this later, but it's creative mixing timing, vanilla knowledge, and a slight bit of aim. 2nd, Trapdoor Climb. The tomfoolery this challenge is subject to is wonderful. 1. Archer Carts. Must shoot, but is moving. Very good, and enjoy. Now looking at the challenge list, it is a little rough around the edges, but it has some solid backbone to it. Unfortunately, there's a few issues I have with some of the host decisions in this challenge. While I won't judge a season based on what the cast does, I can surely judge a season for the host's reaction to it real time. The rule is in place so we can judge the game show as fairly as possible, and when we judge a creation, we are judging the artist. Therefore, we can judge the artist for all actions taken when involved with said art. Does this seem contrived and dickish to you? Well, it is. Get over it. The big issue I have here is what happened with the Potions Challenge. I said I'd talk about it later, and I really do not like how Derek handled it here. Breakfast blocked himself from Lolzy's potions with glowstone blocks. Derek should have called his behavior out for cheating and awarded Lolzy the point. Which he did, only to go back on that later on. It's especially infuriating because Lolzy ended up with more points and should have won if it wasn't for this retcon, which resulted in a tie. Derek could have at least reset the potion challenge if he decided he didn't like what Breakfast did. Not to mention, he's the one that neglected to return them to adventure mode. Always gotta do that, dude. Instead, a point that was promised to Lolzy was taken away and he lost because of it. And look, here's a spoiler. I like Sumo Sky's Belief Edition, but the use of it here diminishes the rest of the finale. If the win is going to end up to whoever wins a challenge designed to be a finale, why have the gauntlet, which in comparison is just fluff? Yes, I know this was a spur-of-the-moment decision, not originally intended, but it spawned from Derek's poor judgment call at a crucial moment. At the very least, cut the challenge from recording entirely and lie to the audience and say that you miscounted for a time. I really like this season. Episodes 1, 6, 7, and 8 are all amazing. Episodes 2 and 9 have their flaws, but are still very good. Episode 3 and 4 can be a bit of a slog to sit through, but have enjoyable aspects. And then episode 5 fumbles the bag so hard. You start off with an amazing premiere, then your entire middle viewing of the season is one big reverse crescendo. Then you finally get to the good stuff, which I want to add is some of the best Game of Pain has to offer over all 8 seasons. Port ends on maybe not a whimper, but definitely not the roar you would want for the crowning of the victor of the All-Star season. It's important to remember how perfect parts of this season got. If we were judging seasons based on their peak, I would almost certainly give this second.
I declare these fry cook games open!
One quick question. What the fuck did Dim say? This season was the first to have a theme, the Olympics. Honestly, a pretty amazing theme as it really does lend itself to a large host of potential challenges. I also have to appreciate the countries chosen. And by that, I mean Wales. What an absolute wild card that I adore. And as always, the cast is amazing. England is the highlight, Wolvesy and CGQ are pretty good draws, as well as some lesser known players like Killer and Fat Fam. Also, where do I know Dim from? Anywho, winterized paintball. You know, if only snowballs did knockback, we could have had a way more fitting challenge for the name. Anywho, 2 seasons in a row, we got a PvP Battle Royale for episode 1. But frankly, this one is much better. First of all, it sticks to the theme of the season. Season 3 was about stealing challenges, and its premiere wasn't even from Trend Show. Second, Bows Only gives it a gimmick, something I can't really say about High Noon Bow Battle. Unfortunately, there's one issue that persists. 3-person final round. Battle Royale challenges always have 2 issues. Camping and cleanup, and it is always worst in the 3-player rounds. 2 players actually go through the effort of fighting each other, while 1 player dies, and then the 3rd player, who was just camping the entire round, comes in for cleanup. You know, it's almost like I have the same issues every time. I should really start reusing these voice clips. The next challenge up is Anvil Drop, which is part of the elite club of challenges that have punctuation in their name. Yep. Go watch it. I really do like this challenge, but it has criminally little to say about it, except for my few issues with it. Mainly the camera. The camera fucking irked me this challenge. The lag I can still forgive, as I understand that's out of the host control. But for the love of God, 3, I beg of you, watch the contestants. But my bigger issue with the challenge is the same issue I have with Spleef. The arena gets blocked off. And some very simple commands could fix this issue by replacing the ceiling and destroying any anvil that hits the ground. Doing this would also allow you to only need 1 layer of anvils, which would immensely help with the lag. I do like the challenge. The fact that you're breaking above you makes it very difficult knowing where other players are, but the knowledge of other players is a large aspect of the challenge. You really need to put the extra thought into maneuvering yourself into a position where you can easily hit someone in the head with an anvil. But the viewing experience is just plain old bad. What could have been one of the best challenges in Game of Pain, especially in consideration to how early it was in Game of Pain history, it instead becomes an unfortunate waste of potential. So, do you remember what I said when I was speaking about the Season 6 version of Biathlon Duels? In a biathlon, you just need to complete 2 challenges, then finish. But when you finish one of the challenges, that's it. You're done with it. Here, both aspects of the challenge are constantly being brought to attention. By completing the parkour, you get just enough arrows to complete the archery aspect. If you are a perfect shot, miss even 1 shot, and you're back to the parkour. Unfortunately, Derek had not made this very important distinction for the first go-around. Once the parkour is done, you are done with it. Although I actually do like the mine parts far more than the buttons, but that's such a small detail, it quite literally did not affect the season's rankings in the slightest. Oh fuck. Anyway, I started this segment talking about camera issues. So, with that said, Derek, you are not the camera. Why didn't you make the parkour easier so the person recording the challenge could, I don't know, record the fucking challenge? At the very least, this challenge was redeemed in Season 6, with the only thing of note that Season 2 did better was not have those stupid alternating ladders. Pro tip for newer game show hosts, the alternating ladders are annoying and you should feel bad about using them. Oh yeah, one more thing. Dummy is overrated, get over it. Yes, I am aware that I am not funny. Final 5 is Fly to the Place. As is tradition for a Game of Pain Fly to the Place challenges, it is very small, but unlike the previous NX2 iterations, it takes it far enough to make it interesting. Where other forms of Game of Pain Fly to the Place try to have the challenge be about efficiently traveling over long distances, without having those distances be long enough to make it interesting, this iteration goes the opposite route and instead is about tight maneuverability to get around obstacles. Things like the quartz having the minefield or the redstone looping back around through the arena, which not only makes the redstone area more interesting, it also gives a natural obstacle for the gold ring. It recontextualizes Fly to the Place in such a way where the limited space is no longer a detriment, but a selling point. Each ring offers some small new challenge that wouldn't be possible in a more traditional Fly to the Place arena. Lapis is your more traditional quick ring at the end. Coal requires a quick pivot in the air to go behind the starting platform. Diamond and Redstone are about larger rooms that require extra flying. Emerald and Gold are in the corner, as well as with Gold you have to dodge the massive fucking tunnel in the way. And Quartz requires grounded movement. These little mini-challenges serve as a great way to keep contestants on their toes, as you either need to be well-rounded in all ways an elytra can be used, or be Eglin and just be really good at Emerald for no fucking reason. If I had to make a complaint about the challenge, I don't like the unnatural just telling players not to jump in rings. I am a firm believer that in challenge making, if something is possible for the players to do, then it should be allowed, except for in the most extreme circumstances. But my only complaint is making people use the elytra in the elytra challenge. Safe to say we're scraping the bottom of the barrel. And as a final note, death by glamour, my beloved. If I had a nickel for every time that Eglin got eliminated in the Final Four challenge of the second season of the skill-based game show, which involved collecting resources and then using those resources to battle it out in a tournament, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that happened twice. With that out of the way, PvP Rooms is worst battle of the blocks. That is it. There is nothing to talk about. It is PvP with gear. I appreciate the better resource management, as you have to decide where to allocate your diamonds, but in the end, it's a PvP tournament. Skip! Crafting races are an interesting topic. The inclusion of a crafting book has forced them to include the collection of resources as its main challenge, which is a good thing, as it makes for a far more interesting viewing experience than a group of contestants standing next to a crafting table playing a nice, invigorating game of interact with the UI. Usually under the opinion that crafting races are rather uninteresting to talk about, as it's very difficult to bring anything new to the conversation with them. However, I really like how Derek approached this. By not giving contestants a very clear set of rules, there is that initial bit of confusion, but the challenge is fairly obvious. The question is, what do you have to craft? Without knowing that, you have to go around collecting resources, and you find signs at the top of each area telling you. He even had the foresight to put the signs on bedrock so that the block under them couldn't accidentally be broken. Which admittedly, I probably would have fucked that up. But beyond that, the change that makes me truly enjoy this challenge, not just mildly thinking it's passable, but genuinely loving the rewatch for this ranking, is the option for contestants to choose which items they want to craft. It means each contestant will go about this challenge in their own unique way. It is no longer speedrun the smallest amount of each resource you think you need, and is now a puzzle where you have to quickly weigh your options to decide which items are the best to craft. Although, I think we can all agree that the enchanting table is the worst option, because who the fuck is collecting obsidian?
How's your guys' day spent?
Oh, pretty good.
Yeah.
It's so upsetting.
I wasn't originally going to cover these challenges in order first to last, so I used the shoddy camera work in episode 2 to segue into episode 4. And then I ended up going in order for the rest of the season. Whoops. Honestly, that's just because each challenge this season is so unique to each other, with only the Final 4 and Final 3 being somewhat close with crafting, which is half of the base game's name, so not really fair to call them the same based on one of the pillars of Minecraft, you know? That being said, Jamaican bobsled team, let's go! The challenge itself, the track is largely uninspired. I like the large amount of turns and general lack of straight lines, but there's not really anything interesting going on, just cobwebs. And the two aren't even mixed together well. There aren't any sharp turns that failure leads to being stuck in the webs, and the one long straight in the course, well, medium straight I should say, features no obstacles at all. The closest we get is that you can take a wrong turn into a very obvious area of cobwebs. The challenge could have benefited largely from some fence posts throughout the course, or a few areas without ice on the edges leading to some off-road potential. A few more obstacles even maybe. It's not bad. Ice boats are always a pleasure, but just compare this to the ice boat race Derek made for Digi 4 and I think you'll agree, the only way this one will hold up is if we grade it with a very steep bell curve. Ah, fuck, I already ended Super Bell Hill. That would have been an amazing pun. Well, it's finale time, baby! Now, I have criticized earlier seasons of Game of Pain for stealing from Strikeout, so when I hear this...
This challenge I stole from Striker and then kind of morphed it around to be a really better and more interesting concept.
I am going to judge it into the ground! And holy fuck, Derek actually delivered. This season, through and through, has been good. Not a single stinker challenge. Some bad camera work, sure, but the games themselves have not disappointed. And this finale had some big shoes to fill, and let me tell you, those boots were still too small. It obviously takes from Sumo Skies, which is genuinely one of the best game show finales out there. The premise is simple: shoot opponent, don't get shot. Differing Y values also offer a really good viewing experience, as contestants who get an early lead get to keep that lead by being given the high ground while making sure it's not impossible for the first of all to make a comeback. It's a very tense, albeit simple game. Every shot that lands brings both contestants down another layer, possibly multiple, and with no way to get back up, it makes each round only able to build in suspense. There's no way for the tension to fall, as every move made only brings us closer to the end of the round with one of the players touching the floor. It's a damn near perfect challenge that would be near impossible to surpass, and that's before Derek got his hands on it. Take something note for note with no edits is plagiarism. Taking something and changing the materials within is called inspiration. And although the addition of spleef seems small, it actually gives us an entirely new way to win, and an entirely new thing the finalists have to play around. This splits their attention and makes it all the more interesting to watch, as you don't know how contestants are going to approach the challenge. Whether they're going to go the more traditional route of trying to hit the players off the platform or break the ground under them. However, there is one thing I have to criticize: the knockback sticks. The inclusion of the knockback sticks makes the close-range spleef action second fiddle when it is meant to be the twist of the challenge. There's not really a point in trying to surprise them with a drop by way of a missing block, when it's both easier and more effective to surprise them by drop by way of a smacadamia nut. Although to be fair, the simple inclusion of spleef is going to make contestants split their attention. Even if they decide 98 out of 100 times spleef is not the best option by their opponent, they still must be careful of the 2 out of 100 times when it is. Which stressing your contestants out leads to mistakes and more interesting circumstances. I hope to see this variant of this challenge somewhere in the future, whether by Derek or not. Just nix the sticks. Overall, while there were a few challenges that fell short this season, it was the first time where every challenge cleared at the very least a 6 out of 10. And funnily enough, only one of 2 seasons that does. And while the finale could have been perfect, the inclusion of the sticks renders its main appeal much duller than it otherwise should have been. Considering finales are where you end off on, they're naturally going to weigh more heavily on the ranking than other challenges. Even then, it's one of the stronger finales so far, and the content in between the start and the end never truly falter. It's unfortunate that it never quite reaches the highs that so many other seasons, including even 4, had, but I do have to award consistency, even if it's consistently just good.
Done, huh? Thanks for the tip.
Here we are, the Game of Pain's last hurrah. This is the closest second place I've done in any ranking, which, while I know this is my only ranking video, I've done a hell of a lot of text-based ones. As always, the cast is solid. We have 2.5 returnees with Exploding, Skelly, and Jolts, then 7.5 newcomers with Andrew, Exia, Carter, Jaeger, Crepe, Happy, Marcus, and Jolts. Now with the obligatory Jolts joke out of the way, we can get on to the challenges. I'm just gonna get this one out of the way to start. Order Up sucks. Order Up is looking through chests the challenge. Please explain how that's interesting in any way. There's no rhyme or reason to what's placed where, nor is there any visual distinction to help contestants possibly decipher what goes where or where something might be. What could have been an interesting challenge where players have to decipher what department their items in their order are supposed to come from. It's instead a mindless search through chests, hoping you randomly stumble onto the specific item. The orders that aren't completable don't help. Usually I love risk and reward, but the risk here isn't based on skill. It's based on whether you're confident enough in your searching abilities that you haven't missed an item somewhere. I've made a mock-up of what this challenge could have been like. Cue the clip. So here's the little mock-up I made. Obviously, this would be the wood section. Anything oak would be here, spruce would be here, birch would be here. If we take a look, we see oak, wood, oak log, birch wood, birch log. So if we run, you know, we see it's not here. But if we look here, oh look, there's the oak logs, there's the oak woods. It's right here in the oak section. So now we can run over to the birch section, open up. Oh look, there's birch wood, no birch logs though. So we know there's no birch log. We could actually go up. So now we know there's no birch logs, and we're not wondering if we just missed it because we're looking through chests randomly and going zombie mode. You fucking suck. As it stands, there's no actual competition here. It truly feels like a luck comp whether you find the item or not. Potentially even worse is that there's no viewing potential here. Even if looking through chests interests some weirdo competitor, as viewers, we see no progress being made in the challenge. We don't know how complete any one person's order is until the order is handed in and it's announced who's safe. I'll be honest here, if Order Up Stuck the Landing was even just passable, Season 7 would have taken its top spot. Which, I'll clarify, it's not that Order Up is that bad, it's only about the second worst challenge Campaign has. Third if we count the stupid-ass advantage placements. It really is that these top two are that fucking close. Well, and yes, Order Up is also that bad. I do believe that this season's version of Parkour Rooms is better than the version seen in All-Stars. As parkour, it's difficult to say anything other than that and tread new ground, so nothing to do but take a look at the titular rooms. The first room is normal parkour, which is fine. It could have done with some more back and forth jumps, but it's fine. Fences is sort of the last room, just a little more difficult, down to the half bowl-shaped path. The latter parkour is leagues better than the OG version, having you to actually jump away from the wall at sections. Fucking revolutionary, isn't it? This one even has a ladder wall, which is hell if you don't know how to do it, and a cakewalk if you do. There actually is a slime room we barely get to see, and it's kind of bad. Instead of using the bouncy fun part, Derek elects to use the obnoxious slowdown effect. Could've just made a soul sand room, you wanker. The fishing rod room is fine, requiring both parkour and the ability to aim with the fishing rod. But more could have been done with it. The main thing is that you can sit there and try and get the shot as much as you want. Why not have a jump where you must retract the fishing rod from one pressure plate, then have a split second to shoot out another one and jump? Or have it where the piston extends for only a moment before retracting once it's hit, requiring contestants to be confident in their shot. As it is, it's jump, pause, do a jump on a thin block, jump, repeat. The barrier room, however, is great. Having the outline of the parkour at the top is how you do it. It's the only way to do it, but Derek did it. Next is cactus parkour. I'm not reusing the shepherd stone here, but I've made my opinion of cactus parkour very clear. Skip! Fuck you. Neos are not a substitution for interesting jumps, Derek. After that, we have the hodgepodge, which still makes me want to vomit looking at the walls, but at least the base parts are better this time. And by that, I mean ladders and barriers were good, slime, maze, and cactus suck ass, and the rest are average. And hey, that's parkour rooms for ya. It's the unsalted saltine of the game show world. Battle of the Blocks season is interesting because it's an actual Final 3 PvP challenge, which this entire ranking I have discussed how much I dislike. The difference here is that it's not a battle royale, it's a round-robin tournament. Now, I will say this does lead to a potential issue with ties, but it's not nearly as much of a problem as there are ways around that. Of course, you have the brute force method of free play until the tie is broken, but you also have the much more interesting method of should second rounds need to occur, you could have contestants decide which bit of gear that should come off of their opponent for that round. Third round, continue doing this until you have a winner. Granted, that could also potentially go on forever, but hey, someone's gotta fuck up eventually, right? The chances of all three players being that equal in PvP and then needing to win or lose to the same specific person on repeat, the chances of that happening even twice are minuscule. So that's Season 1 Battle of the Blocks issues fixed. And looking at Season 6, the issues there are fixed as well. Though diamonds are still plentiful, the netherite is very rare, meaning the choices you make with it are incredibly important. The length of the challenge no longer matters as much, as all of the PvP happens at the very end, and death during the collection phase sends your ass right back in anyway. However, there is one slight detriment. A random item disappears from your inventory every time you die, which is a fine punishment for death. Usually the item won't matter, and if it does, well, it is a punishment for dying. However, the methods of dying are a little iffy to me. PvP with other contestants or environmental damage are both fine, it's the hunters that bug me. And simply put, it's the lack of possible retaliation that's the issue. If they find you, you die. Best thing to do at that point is try and mine one last diamond, and then grab your most precious resource and hold it out of your inventory so it can't be deleted. But overall, it is a great challenge. Anywho, did anyone notice that for both of these last two challenges, I've used the same music as when I talked about them in previous seasons? With the repeat challenges out of the way, we started the season with Volcano. There are two parts to this challenge, building up and shooting others. If you spend too much time building up, you're liable to getting shot off. If you spend too much time on defending yourself from being shot, you aren't going up. And if you spend too much time on shooting, once again, you're not going up, but you're also liable to miss as everyone else going further up, making it harder to get a shot. The lack of night vision, while likely not intentional, added a shockingly good aspect of this challenge by virtue of the contestants not being able to see, therefore making hitting other contestants with a bow harder. It somehow adds a learning curve of difficulty to the Go Up challenge. At the start of the game, alliances are comforting. With 3 players safe each round, it can be quite beneficial to team with another player. Trading turns building up and shooting to get to the top. However, the more players that are safe, the more this strategy can fall apart as each player knows 2 things. 1. If you shoot your partner off, that's another buffer between you and elimination. And 2. Everyone else is thinking the exact same thing. This wouldn't have worked if it was either one long round or each round one person was safe. Derek hit the sweet spot just right. Closest to a questionable decision in this entire challenge is the fact that you need to collect cobble from command blocks. Technically, leaving early means risk of not having enough, but you get a stack at a time. It's not even an issue. But am I supposed to detract the challenge for not having the obscure command execute as at A at S unless entity at S NBT equals inventory cobblestone run give at S cobblestone 64? If you run out, you probably already died and should have been paying more attention anyway. Honestly, an absolute peak way to start this season.
Well. That ain't the invisible cunt.
Alright, I'm going to say it. This is the best challenge in Game of Pain. Absolute 10 out of 10, and its pale imitation in DRM the Event 3 is saddening. The simple reason this challenge works so well is the fact that the host does not move. In most challenges where the goal is to kill the host, this is accomplished by chasing the fucker down. Here, however, the host is invisible. Of course, the next question asked is, how do we balance this to be actually possible? And just like that, Derek took the Murder the Host subcategory of challenges and turned it into a puzzle. To be blunt, this challenge works so well because the map is designed beautifully. No room in the house is too large that finding your shot feels unfair or too reliant on luck. On top of that, the house is littered with interactables. Item frames, doors, trapdoors, chests, probably some levers somewhere, and of course, the good old classic drop a block. Noticing any of these signs tips contestants off that the host is in the area, and then they have a very important decision to make. Do they go for the shot instantly? They could get a miracle guess based on limited information, but if they fail, and they're seen running back to grab another arrow, this gives other players information that the host may be in the room they just left. Of course, you could also stake out the area, waiting for more clues to tell you where the host is, but if you do that, once again, your presence may clue others into where the host is. But furthermore, another contestant can snipe the kill. And then next round, you'll no longer have any information on where the host is at all. Of course, you could anticipate this, and shoot in an area you know the host not to be. Maybe leave false clues to trip up the other contestants into genuinely believing the host is there while you search the rest of the house. This challenge is the definition of risk and reward. The entire time, you have to weigh your options carefully. And what makes this challenge truly special is that it's not about physicality. The risk isn't in a difficult jump, or a dangerous PvP maneuver. It's on your power of deduction. This is something we really never see in game shows. Every second matters, and every mistake is costly. If I was forced at gunpoint to pick out a flaw in this challenge, I guess I'm not a fan that punching is allowed. But then again, from the footage, it seems like hitting an invisible target doesn't really help all that much in deducing where they are. This episode is pure perfection. Also, fun fact, I was originally hiding at the front door, but I accidentally shot Exia, so we had to reset the round. Considering ice hockey has been played for over 150 years, it's no wonder the rule set works so well. But at the same time, I have nothing of worth to add for it. Again, 150 years. Everyone who will like ice hockey already knows about and likes ice hockey. The swarming of the puck is funny. Reminds me of when I feed my rabbits. Especially when the puck touches a wall. Truthfully, it's not even the hockey part that makes this episode so enjoyable. First of all, I love the team tournament setup. If you don't know, first of all, how are you this far into the video without having seen a game of Pain? I barely explained shit, and this is ranked second. But what I mean is when two teams face each other, the losing team splits up and becomes the two new teams. It's essentially comrades to competitors. I can't explain why I love it so much, just that I do. Not to mention, I think the rounds get more interesting when there are less players. Having to split defending and attacking becomes more important as you go on. With 4 players, you can easily have a dedicated goalie. With 2v2, you can still have a dedicated goalie, but that also gives the opposing team an opportunity to 2v1 your attacker. In the final round where it's 1v1, do both, bitch. Good luck. The final thing that pushes this episode above and beyond is the editing. The contrast between the team mascots is one of the funniest things I've seen from Game of Pain. And Derek inserting himself in the closet had 2 options for comedy. Acting gay or referencing MatPat.
MatPat, eat your heart out.
Yeah, I think he made the right decision. This was funnier. And of course, the pure joy on his face when he sees himself on the big screen, it actually makes me feel positive emotions for someone else. That is a tall order. Then of course you have the live action skit explaining the Happy situation. While I will say it is unfortunate that Happy was safe while doing nothing, I understand why Derek moved along the way he did. But on the other hand, the Kiwi and the Aussie were both already eliminated, so why not just take a meal break at this point? Yes, Derek also used this music. Fuck off, it's hype. Here's a fun fact. When I tried to implement the commands for this challenge, they didn't work. They worked fine on a normal world, but because Lambo had essentials on, they just decided to fuck off and take a break. Also, in testing, I yeeted my bow off the edge and went melee. It was the most fun I had that entire year. But as for the challenge, this is how you do a battle royale. Sure, cleanup is still technically an issue, but 1, the dude who gets cleaned up still gets rewarded for their kill. 2, everyone respawns and goes right back into the action. 3, because people respawn and death isn't permanent, it means there is always the same amount of threats at any given time. So spatial awareness becomes part of the challenge. The colored platforms also help because items are fun. But because everyone wants those items, there's a greater chance that someone is going to be there to try and kill you. Now, if you know me and my complaints with Battle of the Blocks, you may be wondering why I'm fine with the different spawn points giving tactical advantages to some people, and simply put, it's because it was the advantage from the previous episode. Having the advantage trickle all the way down is such a cool idea, and I wish more challenges or even more game shows utilized it. It's actually where I got the idea for the potential improvements back in Luigi's Mansion when I was talking about All-Stars. That's right, Derek. I stole from you just to give it back. And you aren't allowed to complain because half of your show is built on plagiarism. It's actually impressive how well this challenge works since it originates from the pre-recorded era, a time I have only heard about through shuddered whispers. Also, the fact that it's bow PvP works so well for 2 reasons. 1, I like bow PvP more than melee, sue me. And 2, it allows the arena to be as big and as interesting as it is. It's full of winding paths, differing Y elevations, and tunnels. The only thing that could even potentially be improved here is maybe some water features to allow for some sick MLG jumping from one platform to another. Even with that most minuscule of complaint in mind, it is still a high-octane, never dull experience where you really gotta dig deep to find anything resembling a flaw. I gotta say, it's kind of funny how one of Derek's most original challenges originated from him stealing someone else's. Here's another tip for any aspiring game show hosts. Look through the creative menu and try and find the most obscure mechanic you can base a challenge around. Done that? Good. It's still not obscure as being able to switch railroad tracks with redstone signals. And fuck do I love me some good old originality. In Card to the Place, you flick levers to make the track go where you want it. What? Are you not impressed? Does it help that everyone is on the same mad dash? And as you are trying to desperately get to the correct color, you are forced to memorize the tracks to other colors in a high-speed race? If you still aren't convinced, then why the hell are you still here? You obviously don't like quality. Go watch Season 4 again. This is another puzzle-like challenge that requires fast reactions. Almost like this is a cheat sheet to me liking a challenge. What makes this, and also Hunting Host, so special is that Derek made challenges that require brain power where you are actively battling the other contestants. It's not enough to think fast, you have to think faster. One could argue that's all puzzle challenges, but by having all contestants race for the goal at the same time, it puts pressure on each person. In a solo room, you have time to think and be logical. Here, you have to act on impulse lest another player get the MacGuffin. The environments are completely different, this one causing panic, potentially leading to mistakes, hence more panic. You also have to consider that whatever paths you memorize may simply not come up. It's not enough to remember 2 and call it a day. You need to have a vague understanding of multiple paths to have a chance in this challenge. And beyond all that, remembering multiple paths should they come up, you also have to keep your bearing and make sure that you even enter onto the right track, as well as actually flicking the correct levers as they show up. Fail in either of these, and you're gonna miss the mark completely. And should you not be careful, you could just as easily flick a lever to turn you away from your destination. If you're lucky, it loops right back. If not, you're going back to the center. As for the final cherry on top, some paths are dropped, which means that some colors can only be collected from one direction, or worse, falling off one of these drops can completely twist your perception, meaning that you have about negative 12 seconds to figure out where the fuck you are, how you screwed up, and get back before someone else claims that color. This is also where the Pain Idol was played. First of all, congratulations to Happy for being the only player in Game of Pain history to change the outcome of a Pain Idol trivia challenge. As for the trivia, I have 2 questions. 1, why the penis, Derek? And 2, why geography? The closest to a theme this season has is being the one before 8. Either do something with numbers, history, or maybe even time travel. It's much more fitting. The route does look nice though. Anywho, it's trivia. Skip! The final episode of Game of Pain. It's important to note that this is far more than this ranking can make it out to be. This is not just a challenge. It is an end of an era. It is a collection of Game of Pain's greatest hits. This is the second way to make a gauntlet challenge amazing. I will be ranking each mini challenge as it appears. Just know that this challenge is by far more than the sum of its parts. And I'll spoil it for you now. Out of every mini ranking I've done in this video, this one absolutely dominates every other in terms of overall quality. To the point where I won't even rank them. Just talk about them in order that they appear because it's easier than having to actually decide where each one belongs in comparison to the others. But before that, if you skipped all the intros at the start, you're missing out because Lambo singing Copyright is Bad is the only thing funnier than the mismatched logos this season. Except when it gets even funnier with Derek cutting in with the most monotone burst into flames by however the fuck you pronounce that last name. Side note, Lambo is really good at singing. First up is Escape the Blocks. already really showing off what can be done with very limited space. The parkour wraps around very nicely and allows for constant PvP opportunities, especially the last jump, which leaves the other player wide open for one last counterattack. You already know I love shenanigans, and I really love 1v1 shenanigans. But the place is very cramped as one would expect, and Derek tried to mitigate this by having only one platform give you the point, but now it's just luck. Okay, Bubby, this challenge can take its one certified L, but Derek, please, I beg of you, stop turning Elytra competitions into luck challenges. Derek Myers is Derek Myers, and I'll be honest with you, the Season 1 finale genuinely works better here as a mini-challenge than it did as the actual finale. Winterize Paintball is a 1v1 bow battle, and I defy you to tell me that doesn't make it good automatically by default. Biathlon Duels is not only amazing, but it goes with the Season 6 method, which you already know that I love. Sumo Skies can't work in its original form with the limited space, so it gets a pass for not having Elytra, because it still has Spleef and Sumo. Good enough. And hey look, Season 8 technically has representation here. Bed Wars is Bed Wars, but Derek, what is your luck with getting these highlights in Bed Wars games? First Skelly winning by doing literally nothing, then Marcus getting spleefed. Up and down, like Derek mentioned, is short due to constraints, but Derek made the best of it with PvP. Very simple change, very effective. Then the Corrupted Season 4 episode. Well, at least we can confirm that episode sucked anyway. Fits in with the rest of Season 4, doesn't it? But I won't lie, it is kind of funny here for a 1v1 that's only part of a larger challenge. Build Battle is a little iffy with the whole subjectivity being part of a finale, but at the very least this time, it wasn't the final deciding point. And there were far more rounds, meaning the one build battle point matters much less. King of the Hill was turned into Beaconator, which I actually really appreciate, as otherwise it would just be Sumo, but you can get back on the Platform Edition. Although maybe I should have done commands where it counts how long your glass is on the beacon total, like in Green Pig Games 11, Campsite Clash. Levitation Oxidization is still peak with less players, and then Hide and Seek. Skip! As for the Ender Race, I really love the twist Derek did here. Obviously, you can't have an entire Ender Pearl course in such a small area, so making it a collectathon works great because it makes players have to make multiple precise jumps while also giving players freedom of choice. Frankly, it's perfect we end on this one, as this is good enough to be a standalone challenge. And as for the ending of the episode, it gets me right in the feels, man. I don't like to feel things. I'm supposed to be an edgelord, damn it. I wanted to give this season first place so badly. It did nearly everything right. Even things I haven't had the time to mention, like the ending interviews giving the credits of all things character. It even managed to scrape by parkour rooms being decent. Then with it being the final season and the actual gut puncher of an ending, and then Order Up fucked it. This season has a bigger impact on me than number 1 does. And honestly, this is my favorite season, but it's not the best. What someone believes to be the best and what is their favorite are two very different things. And if you ever want to make a ranking of your own, it's important to remember that. It's why I like Jello Apocalypse's ranking system so much, where a -10 is better than a +8. The negative just means that the enjoyment is ironic. Granted, it's not a 1-to-1 comparison because this season is genuinely amazing and gets a positive 9 out of 10. It's just that, unfortunately, I have to put some of my feelings aside and look at it as objectively as I can in a clearly subjective ranking like this. And because of that, I have to give this season second place next to...
No special theme because the one I had sucked ass.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure why I went with the anticipation. I think y'all can count. Season 8 was at number 2 until the very final rewatch, where I realized how much better this season was than I remembered. The biggest issue I have with it is that I hate the intro music, and 1, that's not a reason to knock a game show, and 2, it is purely because of my own personal trauma, and no, I will not elaborate. As for the cast, it's split into 3 teams: Team Newcomer, Team Season 1, and Team Season 6. Alternatively, Team Z-Name and Team Not Z-Name. And Zaya managed to clutch it for both. I do have to wonder one thing. Considering how Seasons 5 and 6 dropped the ball with their theming so bad, How awful was this season's theme to have it be removed completely? Escape the Blocks is the first of 3 challenges that have a place in a different season, and as always, it proves to be peak parkour challenge design. And yeah, this season is better than Season 1. Shocking. For one, it's fully enclosed, which just looks better from a viewing standpoint, but beyond that, it utilized its space much more efficiently. Season 1's version stuck to one little corner and it wasn't particularly interesting to look at. I also don't like how players' arrows were limited in the first season. It's a big arena, and it's easy to miss shots. The new slime jump section is also a lot more interesting, utilizing differences in X, Y, and Z coordinates instead of only X and Y like in the original. Beyond that, there's not much to say admittedly. I guess the only complaint I have is that the final room could have had a slime floor so contestants didn't have to wade through water to try again, but on the other hand, I could see how that could lead to some unintentional skips. Finally, Derek has a point where he says,
Got a lot of newcomers here. You could almost call this All-Stars and Tip Jumps this year.
with time travel shenanigans and Jolt Season 7, we can say this is actually a more qualified All-Star cast than the actual All-Star cast. Don't forget that Hunting Host originated in Season 8. And I'll be frank with you, this is not nearly as good a version for one simple reason. That kinda sucks. Whereas Season 7's maps, rooms were condensed so there were only a few places the host could be, and it was up to the contestants to use logic to figure out where the most likely location was. Here, most of the rooms, like the attic or upstairs room, are so large you either need to get lucky or have a degree in trigonometry to find the host. But beyond that, every room in Season 7 had plenty of interactables. Here, very few of the rooms do. The only areas in this map that nail both aspects are the entry room, which for some reason is also the kitchen. Is that the Norman Canada? And the balcony. It's still a phenomenal concept, but the execution on the first go-around definitely was not as good. But the only reason I'd even notice that is because Derek made one of the best damn maps for any challenge in the Season 7 version. It's comparing greatness to perfection. Also, here's your fun fact of the ranking. In the middle of the second round, I went to make a sandwich. It was terrible. Packaged bread, American cheese, ham, and mayo. But I ate it. Like the Place version 5. Well, right now we are 2 for 2 for the Season 7 versions of challenges being better. I would like to remind you that those are the 2 best challenges of that season. And this season doesn't have its own version of Order Up. But as for the actual Season 8 Fly the Place, I believe this is the largest version of Fly the Place showcased in any season of Game of Pain, so point for that. But more importantly, it's the parkour that matters. While this does go the traditional biathlon method of finish one half and then it's immediately obsolete as you do the second, instead of the much more seamless Season 6 method, it works fine this way because once a point is claimed, you at least return to the initial obstacle. This time doing the Elytra, then moving on to the next 4. And the fact that these Fly the Place and parkour are the 2 basic bitch options you'd expect from Game of Pain, combining them means that they only take up 1 slot instead of 2. You also already know how this goes. We do a mini ranking. Let's go. At 12th is Cactus Parkour. I've made my opinion of Cactus Parkour very clear by now. 11th is Barrier Parkour. I like Barrier Parkour when there's a clear path laid out. Having to go by muscle memory of how big a block is instead of by visuals is very fun. However, there's not a clear path that the barriers follow, leading to a very frustrating loop of discovering which of the random barriers you have to jump to next by repeatedly slamming your face into them until you get lucky. And you also have to remember that pattern for each new go-around. Only reason this one ain't last is that I just fundamentally hate Cactus Parkour. This is a mini ranking, so normal video rules go out the window. 10th is Sighing because boring. 9th, Neos are not a substitution for interesting jumps, Derek. At 8 we have Orange because, spoilers, it's just a less good black with a 4 blocker at the end. 7th is Blue, it's a shulker roll. Skip! 6th, Gray. It's ladder parkour, but with a few jump rounds. It's fine. 5th, Light Gray is a better orange, but not as good as black. 4th is Black, which is a better orange and a better light gray. Yellow probably shouldn't be at 3rd, and it would be infuriating if it was any longer, but it's funny, so it just skims the line. 2nd is White because it's evil, but it's an interesting evil. Because it's not just a bunch of Neos. Say it with me, everyone. Neos are not a substitution for interesting jumps, Derek. And that leaves Purple as the best, not only because it is the perfect length and difficulty for a sub-parkour, but I like that it's the all-star cast in elimination order. This cast actually had 3 members of All-Star in it, but only 2 of them are here, and they were the bottom 2 of this challenge, which tells you a lot about the skill level of the All-Stars cast, actually. I vibe with this challenge because even when there are bad parkours, it's only part of a larger challenge, and you still have the Elytra part as a buffer. And it's really hard to make a bad Elytra jump. Also, it means that for the easy parkours, those good at Elytra and bad at parkour have a chance. And for the more difficult ones, those bad at Elytra and good at parkour get their moment to shine. And then you have Zombie, who sucked at both. You know, he played in so many seasons, you almost have to balance the challenges around him specifically. If there's anything I would change about this challenge, it would actually be my camera work. I should have focused more on the Elytra section and had someone else record the challenge, but hey, not Derek's fault, so I can't blame him. Shit, that means I have to blame myself. Fuck! I'm going to keep this section brief because Shulker Pursuit is mob spam only and you will not convince me otherwise. But at the very least, you can smack the projectiles into the Phantom Zone, so there is recourse you can take instead of fuck you and die. So again, mob spam, but it's acceptable mob spam. This is also where the Pain Idol was played, and general trivia for the general season works fine, but it is still trivia, so skip! High Wire Sumo is fascinating. It takes the concept of sumo, but changes the playstyle so much. Preventing players from jumping makes sure they stay on the track, although I will say there could have been more opportunities for head hitter jumps over large spans of the map, whether to run away from someone or to pursue. As it stands, it feels like random spaghetti. I'm also not a fan of the random items for round 1. I get the need to hide the Pain Idol, but considering Season 7 gave us the precedent that it could be in Episode 2 instead of Episode 1, there's no real excuse to not nix the shulker boxes, considering Escape the Blocks is next. Not to mention, like Season 6, the color you chose could give you an inherent advantage with better items, which is no bueno. I mean, Air got a dog as his item, which is practically useless as it will just jump into lava. Back to positives, however, I like how spatial awareness is such an important factor in this challenge. Even in other PvP battle royales, you can get away with being a ditz as long as you're a ditz who's good at PvP. Here, that's not really a possibility, as it's very likely a single hit will send you off of the bounce beam from hell. But there's one glaring issue. The final 3 PvP complaint. And it's the worst one yet. It's a double elimination. Before, engaging in combat and winning led to you getting cleaned and receiving the disadvantage. Here, engaging in combat and winning results in you getting cleaned and getting eliminated. You can clearly see this happen with Braven going out of his way and fighting Zeta before Zebra comes up and kills them both. Zebra was a coward and got to continue playing. Braven played the game and got fucked. And this isn't simply a one-off issue, we see this happen all the time. I still like the challenge, but not so much the execution. You have to wonder why Derek didn't just have a 10-person game show. Or move the challenges around so this was episode 2 and have the double elimination elsewhere. You could have started the season with Escape the Blocks, especially considering it was the first challenge in Game of Pain history. Okay, sure, it's plagiarized, but it's a good challenge to steal. So first of all, Goomba's Village, the song that's playing for like the 4th time in this video and it's still not as overused as it is in Game of Pain, continues after the lobby, through the confessional, and into the challenge. And honestly, I think that gave me actual anxiety and I cannot explain why. Also,
in the last episode, we lost Darkrai, the winner of Season 1. That means we will have a new winner this season. Quite excited for that.
Blood, you just spoiled that Zaya didn't win Season 6. Anywho, on to the actually important part, the challenge. It's a really solid mix of spatial awareness and archery. Similar to Volcano, but I think this is actually slightly better. In Volcano, you could get by just building or with an alliance. Here, you truly need a mix of both. You can't just shoot, or you'll be shot under right away. And you can't spend the entire challenge worrying about spacing because you'll never actually shoot the floor out from under your opponent. The rounds are very quick too. You know that there were 10 rounds played, and yet the challenge is perfectly paced for it. I also have to appreciate the opportunity taken by Derek when both players were recording their own perspective. It's initiative like this that I really like to see in the shows, and yes, I am aware that technically that was a circumstance of chance, meaning usually I shouldn't count it, but the reason I count it as a positive is because Derek, the host, realized the potential of something and brought it to life. If it just happened without Derek making this realization, the fact that the two cast cams had a round against each other would mean nothing. Anywho, good challenge. Puzzle, Plethora, Panic, Blowdown, Palooza. A name so long, I have a separate voice file for it. As always, puzzles are a cheat sheet to my heart. This is a really good one. By the by, this challenge was actually shorter than Pikmin Puzzle Get Ratioed, son. If you look at each room, at first they seem like nothing special. The first room is a simple game mechanics puzzle. Mine the iron, make a bucket, fill a cauldron. Effective at warming the players up, but the room's true purpose is the code on the ceiling, which is the key to the next room. It rewards players who look around, but at the same time, the second room is possible to brute force. The third room involves builder trading and throwing an item through a painting. And I don't remember the solution, but that just means it's a good puzzle. Probably. I do have to question the parkour at the end here though, but the final room is one I really enjoy. Needing cobblestone and keys to get the cobblestone. A perfect player will hypothetically get every key and cobble in one go. However, more likely is that the players will need to backtrack throughout the puzzle, which works for the sole reason that if they missed a key, they missed something and will now have to look at the puzzle in a new light to try and figure out what they missed. Although I may not be a huge fan of the light gray stained glass brick, the rest of the puzzle is so well put together, I have no choice but to forgive it. Throughout this entire challenge, each room is connected to a different one in some way. Many puzzle challenges, like Puzzle Panic from Whose Game Is It, are simply a group of rooms that you continue one after another. Quintuple P is built in a way that the entire build matters throughout the entire challenge. Similar praise I gave to Season 6 in Biathlon Duels compared to a Season 2 counterpart. This is probably the biggest glow-up from memory to rewatch. Ironic considering the last puzzle challenge that separated contestants into different groups had the worst dulling from memory to rewatch. Beyond just the challenge, this is one of the best edited episodes in all of Game of Pain. The combining of the 4 runs gives viewers a general feel for each run, but no idea how everyone did until the end when placements are announced, as well as cutting 45 minutes down into a nice 12-minute chunk of highlights. It's especially impressive considering that there was nearly a 5-minute difference between last and second to last. Honestly, it's just peak.
You have no desire to
Toast a Final 3 luck comp.
No, I'm afraid I don't.
Then why all of this deception?
Yeah, that about sums up my feelings about this one. The luck game deception was odd. You could have at least had a joke about having 2 rounds. If you fall in the second round, you're eliminated. Then it could match up with an actual spleef game. But for that to work, you need to go by a 1 point and your safe basis. Really, just have spleef as the competition right from the start. It's the defunct, it's fine, 6 out of 10 game because there's no shame in using it. Fucking saltine of the game show community. By the way, this is the other season that bottoms out at a 6 out of 10 challenge, and I'm saying that here because I have nothing else to say about spleef. Skip! Okay, actually, after the writing of the script, TDM 10 was released, and that also had a Final 3 spleef challenge. So, Derek, congratulations, you have now officially been copied by both Strikeout Game Show and Total Draw Minecraft. I hope you are very proud of yourself. I've discussed my love of risk and reward challenges before. It's half of this ranking. But this one's a little different, in that not only is it risk for reward, it's also poor play for reward. Well, usually that would arise the argument that it's unfair to reward a player who did poorly with an advantage. It's balanced out by the fact that, by default, doing poorly in this challenge puts you at a further deficit. While that works for the disadvantage concept throughout Strikeout shows, it's a little more frustrating in a finale, where you don't want each round to essentially be decided by the quick draw at the start. This way, not only is the game balanced throughout the entire round, but there is still always the option to willingly give up the high ground for a higher knockback bow. The higher the knockback from the bow, the further your opponent will be launched. So with clever positioning, you could go down one layer, hit your opponent quickly, and with how far you launch them, they could find it difficult enough to land if they fall down multiple layers. If you keep a close eye, you could easily get that last shot as they're landing. Of course, you also need the skill to do that, but this isn't the final two. Having the lower layers be thinner is a good move as well for 2 reasons. One, it increases the quick thinking needed to land again after being hit, but it also makes it more fair. When you get to red and orange, even the player with the high ground has an absurd bow, so needing them to be close to each other makes the height advantage less detrimental. This small detail keeps the game both balanced and nail-biting. While the height advantage is still a real thing, at any of the lower layers, a single hit could spell the end of a round, culminating in the black layer being 1 block thin. One shot is nearly guaranteed death, sans the luckiest landing onto another block ever. But hitting your opponent 1 layer above you on red is just as much of a death sentence for them as well. Even if they do land it, they're having to slow down just to not overshoot the platform, giving you another perfect opportunity to hit them off. This challenge demonstrates Derek's inherent understanding of proper game balancing, and if I had to form a complaint, I couldn't. If I had to change anything, maybe give the bow for being on the black layer punch 8 or 10 for a final hurrah. Even then, that wouldn't exactly change anything, as even the punch level it is currently is nearly guaranteed death. I'm just doing my due diligence as a ranker and trying to figure out anything wrong with pure perfection. Although on a personal level, I prefer Season 7, going on the basis of pure quality, Season 8 barely knocks out its prequel. None of the challenges are a slog to get through, and at its very worst, it is still worthy enough for me to not check my phone while the episode is playing. 1 or 2 questionable decisions that don't detract from the season, and that's if I'm going through each episode with a fine-tooth comb, looking for anything to question. Season 8 is one of the best game shows I have ever seen, period. And it is easily the best I have seen from someone who is not a showrunner. Which that sentence will age poorly when Derek inevitably gets showrunner. Congratulations, Laura. You get one. Fuck! I forgot to make fun of Season 4! Ranking sure has differed since 2019, hasn't it? The Game of Pain is so much more than this ranking could ever make it out to be. More than a spreadsheet, or a collection of challenges, or even YouTube playlist. It's a legacy, and I am so proud to be part of that legacy. Even if I start over halfway through the series, the Game of Pain is important to me. Derek is one of my best friends, Discord or not, and through him I form meaningful relationships with people I couldn't imagine my life without. People like War or Digi, even just acquaintances I happen to be fond of, like Lambo or Lobster. And I'm just a cast member turned crew. I can't fathom what this series must mean to Derek. I resonate with what he said about this show making him feel like he belonged. That's what the GSC means to me, but I just joined a Discord. He made something. He brought together his motley crew, and I am so thankful that I was allowed to be a part of it. I could spend days speaking about every second of Game of Pain, every instance, and how Derek shaped the Game of Pain to lead to that specific moment in time, and it wouldn't matter, because for every time Game of Pain had a challenge I considered to be a flop, or every time the cast acted up, one thing never changed. You could feel Derek's passion. You could feel his love for this series through the screen, and that is beautiful. Beyond that, if I'm being honest, Game of Pain is just some of the most consistent quality out there. I would rather watch Game of Pain Season 4 than I would watch Strikeout Season 5 any day of the week. When I make fun of the Game of Pain's shortcomings, it's because I'm comparing it to the best that Derek has to offer. He's an incredibly talented man, and this community is better for having him. So thank you, Derek, for everything. I loved making this project when I finally got off my ass and started doing it in fucking April of 2024. But I won't lie, I am glad it is over. So Derek, I'm asking you to make me a promise. Never stop creating, even if you eventually move on from Minecraft, from game shows, from the community. Express the creativity that has provided so many people happiness, whether playing or watching. I am ecstatic to see what you have in store for the future. Speaking of which,